Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Nico Hischier. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero-G draft strategy. In this episode, Blake and I are continuing our annual projection series in which we review our projections for every fantasy relevant player on all 32 NHL teams. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
We're back, baby. We're big time back. I'm super stoked. Obviously want to get into this with you. For those that don't know, our good friend here, Nathaniel, was just out in the bush for a week. And I heard through, some of my, my people, I got a few people I talked to here that, you met someone out there and you were crossing the streams with them. And I wanted to just face to face, did you meet a friend out there and were you crossing the streams without me, in a beautiful lake there?
What happens in the bush stays in the bush. I think that's the saying. So
I don't know that that's a saying, but okay, yeah, let's
we'll leave it at that for now. I am excited to get back into this.
Oh, yeah.
It has been too long. I did enjoy my time away, feeling refreshed and rejuvenated as per usual. But by the end, I will admit there were thoughts of fantasy hockey and all the potential things I could be doing to prepare for the fantasy season.
That's so funny. You're out there just in a beautiful lake and you're like, oh, I gotta check these ADPs out. I wonder who's going to be value this year. Is there something wrong with us, folks? Hit us up in the comments and be kind.
All right, let's dig into it. Let's talk about the New Jersey Devils. Key departures here: Shimon Nemec, Jacob Markstrom, Maxim Siplikov, who you may not have even remembered was on the Devils, but he was, apparently. Key arrivals: Anthony Mantha, Evan Rodriguez, Jesper Boqvist coming over in that Markstrom deal, and David Riddick signed to be a potential member of this tandem for the Devils. High level, how are we feeling, Blake? We've got departure on the blue line here, but they've really filled out this forward group, which desperately needed it. It was a pretty big sore spot last year. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I think if you're a Devils fan, you got to be happy. First off, with the hiring of Sonny Mehta, I think it's a really, really strong hiring. He's got a great energy and seems like some really sharp ideas, and he's going to do things a little bit differently here. And the Devils obviously need that. Their offense was terrible last year, but with departures and arrivals, I think they got rid of some pieces here that were potentially part of the problem. Like Jacob Markstrom had just a god awful year there with the Devils. I mean, he had I think it was -11 goals saved above expected there, which is not good, folks. I think that's 8th worst in the NHL with goalies that played 20 plus games. And then they also lost Paul Cotter. Canucks picked him up, so that's fine. I like Paul Cotter, but I think when I was digging in here, his goals for or expected goals shared was like 40%. So that line was getting just obliterated out there. So could be addition by subtraction here. And then you add, Mantha, Anthony Mantha, Erod, Boqvist. I think those are really good pieces that can help kind of solidify that middle six, bottom six. And that was a really, like you said, a sore spot for the Devils there.
All right, let's talk about the coach behind the bench. Sheldon Keefe returns for his 3rd season. I thought that this was going to be one of Sonny Mehta's first moves, was to get rid of Keefe. I think the world of Mehta, to be honest with you. I was pretty sad that he decided to go to the Devils and didn't come to the Leafs. But it sounded like that was kind of always going to be the case. That was where he wanted to be. Every interview I've ever seen with Sonny Mehta, I just come away like I could listen to that man talk about roster building for hours on end. I think he is one of the brighter lights across the NHL. Definitely not a member of the old boys club, but keeps Sheldon Keefe here for the 3rd season. It's definitely a prove it year, right, for Sheldon Keefe. Last year did not inspire confidence. He's got to prove that it was more than just a minor contract contretemps, if you will. Do we think that the middle six forwards here make a material difference? Is that the only thing that Keefe was missing, or do you think that Keefe himself is missing something integral here to their success in 26-27?
It's tough, like I'm with you there with Sonny Mehta. I really think that he's one of the sharper minds here, and he did his due diligence and decided to bring Keefe back. So I think that is a bit of a glowing endorsement there, but I do think the leash is going to be a little bit short. Like if the Devils get out to a really bad start, I don't think it's going to take long for Keefe to get bounced. But he is a good coach. He's been successful in this league here. The Devils did have some extenuating circumstances last year as well. But yeah, like I think Keefe was trying to do kind of like again, dumb down hockey, north-south hockey. But he didn't have, especially in the bottom six, like those players weren't really fast enough to get in and get those puck retrievals in the offensive zone. The top two lines, sure, yeah, they were given a little bit of leash to be offensive, and they were, but they were getting nothing from their bottom six. So I think that was a big deal for Mehta to bring in guys like Mantha, who can going to jump right into the top six here. And I think a couple players from Florida are really nice, like Erod and Boakvist, like obviously coming from a winning environment. And also like if Keefe still wants to do, with the bottom six there, he wants to do dump and chase, like those guys do it pretty damn well. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think, there's some really good bits and pieces here, but I mean, something's got to change, right? This team, it's not the Devils team that we thought was just a wagon off the rush. It's, under Lindy Ruff. No, that's Sheldon Keefe put an end to that. He didn't give a damn. He's like, are you fans enjoying this hockey? No. All right. We're not doing that. We're going to clog it. Like, you remember 1995 in New Jersey? We're going back to it. Okay. But yeah, I mean, their expected goals for per 60 was 19th in the league at even strength. They were 31st in the league in actual goals for per 60. That's putrid. Oh my God. But they were 6th overall in shots for per 60. Hughes was weirdly injured. And, I think, on the back end, there were some problems there. And like I said, the bottom six. So all that to say, I feel like Keefe should be in a better position to succeed. And with the additions that Mehta's brought in, I think the Devils are primed for a bounce back, honestly.
All right, let's dig in on the power play. Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, they're locks on this power play. I can't imagine a scenario in which they're healthy and not on the top power play. The biggest question, I think, and it has been the biggest question for maybe the last 2 years already, is the Luke Hughes versus Dougie Hamilton debate on the back end. Who is going to be the power play one quarterback? We even saw Nemec get a look at the top power play quarterback. It was a short stint, but he did get up there. That's how up in the air it was last year for the Devils, and they really didn't seem to declare a winner at any point throughout the year last year. So do we think that one has the upper hand going into this year? Do you think that, one of the reasons that I thought Dougie Hamilton could get it in years past, it did seem like maybe they were trying to showcase him a little bit for a trade last year, and maybe that deal just never materialized for them, where somebody stepped up to give them the kind of package that they were looking for. Now, I think Sonny Mehta is the type of GM, analytics GM, who will look at Dougie Hamilton's analytics and say, you know what, the good outweighs the bad with this guy. I actually kind of like him, and I think I'll keep him. Does that make him more or less likely to be on the power play, though, is a totally different question. And so I'm kind of like just chasing my tail in circles here with this whole debate. Do you feel like you've come to a conclusion here, Blake?
I feel comfortable with where I'm at. And I like what you said there about them sort of retaining Dougie. I think at the very least, they've identified Dougie Hamilton as a player that they can get more out of, right? Power play or not, right? I think they like what he brings to the table and can really complement some of these players they have. That said, I think it's going to be Luke Hughes. Luke Hughes, to me, I'll back up here. One of the things I've been doing to sort of prep for these shows and look at these power plays is who's coaching the power play, who's in charge of it. And this year, Sheldon Keefe is back, but they nuked his assistants and they brought in this new guy who was a coach at Harvard for 22 years, and he's going to run the power play. His name's Ted Donato. He's Ryan Donato's dad. So yeah, that's nice. But he's going to run the power play. And, I was kind of digging in on some of the things he did there in Harvard, and his main focus, long story short, was positional fluidity, puck movement, and pace. Those are the things that he's interested in. And it sounds to me like he's prioritizing possession more over low danger shots. And what do we know Dougie Hamilton for, right? Low danger shots from the point. Yeah. That's what he does. He bombs away. Like, we saw it in Tampa this year too with Darren Radish. And it worked really well for Radish, but Tampa's power play wasn't that good, right? In fact, it was one of the worst power play seasons as a team they've had. Radish was great, but I think that they're going to go back to the Devils. I think they're going to go Hughes for that facilitation and for that kind of possession and putting the dangerous players who are closer to the net in a position to score rather than just bombing away from the point.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely, if you're going to try to be more multiple and let your defenseman roam more, then Hughes is far more equipped with his skating to do that than Dougie Hamilton is at this stage of his career. There's also another forward spot up for grabs on this potential top power play unit. Anthony Mantha got some looks on the top power play in Pittsburgh and was effective when he was there with the Pens. I mean, that was a great unit in its own right, and so it's kind of perhaps easy to fit in there. Connor Brown got a look there last year and was pretty effective in a short run. Can Timo Meier finally get off the second power play unit and factor into this top power play unit? How are you kind of working your way through that debate?
I think it's still going to be, it is going to be a debate, and it's going to be a debate for Sheldon Keefe and Ted Donato. I think that we'll probably see all those players on there as we normally do. But if I had to lean one way, I've projected it as Connor Brown getting the bulk of the minutes. And when I say bulk of the minutes, like I'm talking about, I projected him for like 2.5, basically, or just under 2.5. And I've also projected, Anthony Mantha for 215, and I've projected Timo Meier for 225. So I don't think it's a cop-out. I think it's actually what might happen. But with Connor Brown, this unit did see some success there. Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt really like playing with Connor Brown, and I think they also like the handedness there. Connor Brown is a righty, so it sort of makes sense for what they're looking for. I know they famously put Stefan Nason there on the power play as opposed to Timo Meier because of the handedness. Like, what are you doing? But so I'm going Connor Brown here, but all that to say, I do think that this power play is going to be a hell of a lot better, like big time better. Sorry, I wrote it in my sheet here, but their power play last year, even though they were 14th overall in actual goals for per 60, they were 3rd overall in expected goals for per 60. So they were still generating a ton. And that was missing Jack Hughes for part of the year. That was like the rotating D-man on the back end. They were still 3rd best in expected goals for. So I think that we could see, just a bit more puck luck and, a new power play coach in here that can sort of get them playing more to their strengths. And I think we're going to see a good season here. But yeah, Mantha, Brown, Meier, all going to see some time. Which way are you leaning, Nate?
Yeah, I did something similar. I just kind of did it the opposite direction. I have Mantha for the most time at 2.5 minutes. I have Brown for the least at 1.5 minutes. I just think if Connor Brown's on your top power play, you're doing something wrong long term. And so while I do think, like, your eyes didn't deceive you, it worked last year. Like, I'm not trying to rewrite history here. I just don't think that Connor Brown is going to be a fixture on a top power play unit for any length of time. And so I think that they may even try that out of camp this year. It may be the first thing they try. I just don't expect it to last long. I think Mantha is probably a guy that just has more utility overall on a power play unit and can play a variety of positions, can be big in front of the net, can go down low and play on the goal line, as we've seen guys like Matt Tkachuk do in some other places. I just think there's more options with Mantha, and you'll probably see him be used more often. Meier can also work in there at some point, especially if there are injuries. So that's the way I had it. In the end, like, it's not a huge swing across all these. Like, I have Mantha for 16 power play points and Brown for 9. So it's not like we're talking about a massive swing top to bottom there either. All right, let's dig in on the projections, starting with the top guy, Jack Hughes. I have him for 40 goals, 62 assists, 102 points. You have him for 42 goals, 62 assists, 104 points. Jack Hughes obviously has not been healthy. When healthy, he is one of the preeminent goal scorers and point getters across the entire NHL. In APL mocks right now, going at an average draft position of 10.8. Is that about where you're comfortable with him, Blake? Are you trying to bring him up a little bit more? I mean, he did some good things for you on a couple teams last year, I remember.
He sure does. I'm a Jack Hughes fan of his play. He's amazing. He's unbelievable. And something, and I've said this a few times in different pods, and I'll say it again here. With injury narratives, like obviously Nate and I have made our stance pretty clear. But I've also even kind of expanded that in my own mind when I'm drafting players. Like, as long as players aren't out for like the entire season, or if it's a catastrophic injury where they're just, week to week, month to month, like they're still going to be able to provide value for you on your team. And yeah, drafting a guy at 10th overall, having him be out for 20 games a year, that's not great. But I drafted him at 10th overall last year in one spot, and he was out for doing his thing, right? And came back and smashed and actually won me the league. So, the rest of your team matters as well, right? And that's why you're listening here to Apples and Ginos, right? We're trying to help you build the best possible team. You don't put all your eggs in one basket just because you drafted Jack Hughes, in my opinion. So I'm going to put that out there. But yeah, this is one of these years, Nate, and he's gonna really hit 80 games, 80 plus, and we're gonna see a massive season. Like, he paced for 104 last year, and that was on a putrid Devils offense. So we're looking at potentially a better power play this year. That I'm projecting that he had 23 power play points last year. He's gonna smash that. This guy's one of the premier rushers in the league. His arm was still all messed up from whatever happened, whatever type of injury he had. So his shot was a little bit down, and you could see that when he came back. I think efficiency goes up a little bit. There's just so many ways for Jack Hughes to absolutely obliterate what he's been able to do previously. And yeah, I think in the APL 10, I'm happy to grab him at 10, and I always will be. But, I can see the argument for being like, I want something a little safer. Sure. You know what I mean? I trust my drafting, throughout the entire draft, where I'll be able to kind of absorb any games that Jack Hughes may miss. But it's legit. I don't have an issue with that, but I just think this is going to be a big season for him. And I'm pretty stoked. I don't know. What about you? Jack Hughes at 10. Are you taking a ride?
Yeah, I'm into it. I think he's closer to Kaprizov. He's closer to Makar, like that level, than he is to a lot of the other guys who are going in his range for me. So, yeah, I think I would take conclusively right now, I would say that I would take the top 5. So McKinnon, McDavid, Kucherov, Celebrini, Draisaitl. Definitely taking those guys. I would take Pasternak over him. I think I would take Makar over him pretty conclusively. So that gets us 7 out of the way there. And then I think he's right there for me. I think he's right there with Kaprizov. He's right there with Matthews. He's right there with Werenski. And that's just kind of looking like a tier to me at the moment. Still, some things may come up. We might get some camp reports. Things may work around a little bit in my mind. But I think I would consider him as early as 8. And I think he makes a lot of sense in that range. Like Matthews, we'll get to Matthews, but that's a similar bet, right? Like the ceiling is so high, but are you going to get the full effect? And so it's a similar thing here with Hughes. And to your point, I think I'm just willing to ride the train with him. All right, Anthony Mantha. Next up here, I put him as a top line winger here. I'm not married to this, but I did kind of do it because I think that, maybe like he's the most common guy by the end of the season to be on this line at like 40% of the time. Like Bratt and Hughes are going to play together like 80% of the time, and then Mantha is playing with those two 40% of the time, and then it's just a host of other guys who work through. So I think that Mantha is a good look here. I like him. 23 goals, 26 assists, 49 points for me, 29 goals, 25 assists, 54 points for you. So you're actually even higher. This is not quite the biggest difference in our projections, but close to it. 5 points difference between us. I like Mantha here. I think it's really just a case where you want to wait and see. He's going to be at the end of your drafts. You're going to get some camp reports, hopefully. Yeah, he's getting a look on this top line. Yeah, he's getting a look on this top power play. And you're going to be like, yeah, I gotta take a look. Because what if it really works? What if he stays there all year? Now you're looking at a guy who has 30-plus goal upside, who has 60-plus point upside, could be a fixture in your lineup all year long.
Yeah, I think he's locked in for top 6, like whether he plays with Hughes and Bratt or if they bump him down to left wing with Meier and Hischier, like he's good to go. That's a much better situation than he dealt with last year in Pittsburgh, right? Much better. And he had a great year. His percentages were ridiculous, right? Not sustainable. He went off the rails. I mean, IPP was actually not even a career high, but yeah, like 73% at even strength. His on ice shooting percentage was 14%. That's crazy stuff at even strength. He's not going to hit that, but I do think he'll get a little bit more time on ice. So that kind of buffers some of that regression to me. And then, I think he's actually pretty complimentary for both these lines because he's kind of that, really sweet hands in front, good board battler, forechecker. He can do that as well, get the puck to these guys. And his efficiency has always been pretty good. He's dealt with some injuries here and there. And then you look at this last season here, he only played 15 minutes and 11 seconds, and he was able to do so much with so little. So I just think there's going to be some buffering there. It's still a new face in a new place, but they've done their due diligence with this player. I'm glad that he cashed in. I think that he has the ability to continue this type of thing. I got him for, 13 power play points. I'm a little bit less convinced that Mantha will get power play 1 there. I think he's going to be kind of a power play 2 staple, similar to the role maybe that he had in Pittsburgh, maybe a little bit more elevated, right? Because they need him more. But I'm a big fan, and I think that this player does have more ceiling than what we're showing here. And I've got him for 54, and I think that's a nice spot to be. And I think, are we drafting Mantha? Like, I don't think this is a smash. Like, oh, Mantha's with the Devils now, you're definitely getting him. I think he's going to have a worse season than he did last year in Pittsburgh. So if you didn't draft Mantha last year, you're probably not drafting him this year. I think, there's some potential there, but I don't know. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I think it depends. I want to have some sort of report. He's in that range of, if he's getting this role, then I want him. If he's not, then I'm not interested. So it really is that simple to me with Mantha. Jesper Bratt, the other member of the top line, 22 goals, 61 assists, 83 points for me. 23 goals, 63 assists, 86 points for you. I like Bratt. I see a path to more points than this if he pops off on the power play particularly. I only have him for 25 power play points. If that power play is really good, I could see him eclipsing 30 power play points and pushing this to like the 90-point range. So I think that's possible. Underrated hitter, like almost a hit per game I have him for as well. So he's got some utility. He's not a big time shooter, but I have him for 185, so it's not a bad number there either. So he brings you a little bit more than what you get with the surface level stats here, I guess I could say, with Jesper Bratt. I am kind of not convinced that there's a ton of ceiling here. He's been going relatively high in our mocks given the season that he just had. I thought he would fall a little bit more. He's going around pick 60 in our APL mocks, which is obviously the end of the 5th round in your 12-team leagues. And that seems probably about right to me. I have him actually ranked a little bit lower than that, just going off my average fantasy points per game. There's still some other players that I'm probably going to look at before Bratt at that point, but I do think there's a little bit of potential for upside. I just don't know if I'm going to be having Bratt on a ton of teams this year. How are you feeling, Blake?
I like the value for Bratt. Honestly, I think that it was such a down year last year in terms of their offense. Like at even strength, his on-ice shooting percentage was 9.29 after 2 straight seasons of 11% plus. Which is probably where it should be when you're playing with a guy like Jack Hughes, right? His shooting percentage was down as well, just a little bit from last year. So I do think there's some ways for him to kind of get back to the 90-point plateau there. I think that's probably his ceiling, but I do think his floor is really solid. Like, he did a lot of this work without Jack Hughes. He had a 71-point pace on a really bad offensive team, or he scored 71 points, on a really bad offensive team, and did that without Jack Hughes and without really good power play numbers. So if I'm projecting the power play is going to be much better, which I am, again, like I said, 3rd overall in expected goals for per 60 last year with and without Jack Hughes, like throughout the season, I think we're going to get something there. So, what did you get him for power play points? Did you say, like, I've got him for 30?
I got him for 25, so that is the difference really between our projections.
Yeah. So I guess, I'm kind of all in on the Jersey power play here. I think it's going to be a big difference, and I think we're going to see a lot more production there, especially if they kind of lock in as a true number one and stop farting around. Like, let's get Bratt out there for 3+ minutes on the power play. That's what I projected. So all that to say, elite rusher, plays with Jack Hughes, and we've got a better bottom 6 here in New Jersey as well that can potentially win their minutes. Like if the top 2 lines weren't doing it for the Devils last year, nobody was. So I think that's going to be a big difference this year for this team.
All right. Nico Hischier, I have for 31 goals, 43 assists, 74 points. You have him for 34 goals, 43 assists, 77 points. Safe to say, we're projecting a bounce back for Nico Hischier next year. Again, 25 power play points, over 200 shots. Some good stuff there for Hischier. I like the value on Hischier definitely more than I like it on Bratt. Hischier's going at pick 78, so in the 7th round there, and that just feels like a guy you can lock up and take to the bank. Of course, I said that last year, and it didn't go very well, but basically all the same things you're talking about with Bratt there in terms of the potential positive regression also apply to Nico Hischier at some level as well. The fact that they've added these pieces just gives them more options to play with Hischier when other players were getting injured and the lineup was moving around. That was, flushing some talent away from Hischier as well, potentially at times. So I just think overall, he's in a safer place from a floor perspective, and I still think there is potentially point per game upside from Hischier if he kind of goes off on a year and has a bit of an efficiency bender as well. So I really like the Hischier bet in the 7th if you've been waiting on center.
Yep. I don't have too much more to add. I liked what you said about this player as being safe. I think we saw his floor last season, 66 points, like 28 goals, 38 assists. That's fine. Right. And he still had 23 points on the power play, including 11 goals. So I think that I bumped his shooting percentage up a little bit at even strength. I think that's going to be a better piece, and it'll depend on his line, right? Like I've got, I see you've got Dawson Mercer, Hischier, and Meier as the second line there. I've got it a little bit different. I've got it as, and maybe this is wish casting, I don't know, but I got Arseny Griciuk up there on left wing. I see him taking a step this year, but I could also see Connor Brown going up to the top line, playing with Jack Hughes, Anthony Mantha coming down to the second line. Yep. So I think I'm at the very least, I'm thinking Griciuk or Mantha on that second line. And that to me is an upgrade offensively over Dawson Mercer. And yeah, to me, it raises the floor a little bit of what's going on there, raises the playmaking ability a little bit more. So equaling more goals, better shooting percentage, all that. So yeah, very safe, 77 points with ceiling, right? And he plays a ton.
Yep. All right, Timo Meier next up, 28 goals, 26 assists, 54 points for me, 31 goals, 28 assists, 59 points for you. 5.2 points difference in our projections. This is the player we have the biggest difference on. I'm for 14 power play points. What do you got for him there?
Well, that's a good question, Nathan. 14.
Okay, so we're bang on there. So it is all 5v5 stuff. So general 5v5 increase from Meier you're seeing, is that similar to the case for Hischier that we just laid out?
Sort of. Yeah, it's part of it. But I'm also... and I've done a lot of reading on this. Like Timo Meier's position that he wants to play is right wing, not left wing, where Sheldon Keefe has had him playing for pretty much his entire time here in New Jersey. And there's been fans clamoring for it. There's been analysts clamoring for it. When Timo Meier had his big seasons in San Jose, he was playing on the right wing. Like this guy's a hammer. He's the guy that should be at the end of passes. And, he's a left-handed shot playing on the left wing. So that usually means you're opened up to the ice more. So you're more of a facilitator at that point, right? Timo Meier is not a facilitator. He's the guy that needs to be cutting into the middle, doing one-timers, right? He's got a great wrist shot as well, snapshot. I'm predicting and projecting that he gets moved over to the right side to make space for either Anthony Mantha or Arseny Griciuk to jump on that line. And because of that, that's why I'm bumping up his shooting percentage. I see him, at the end of more passes and not having to kind of do all the work to get there. Just get to the soft space on the ice and hammer away. And he's good at that. And yeah, I feel like they have to do something here to activate this player offensively because Sheldon Keefe has been dropping the ball, just especially with Timo Meier. Like this has not been a good player under Sheldon Keefe. And I think that he's got a lot more to give. And so, I'm hoping, but I also think it's a logical move if you want to kind of kickstart the offense in the top 6 there. So that's my thought.
Yep. Yeah, I don't mind it with Timo Meier. It's just at this point, I'm thinking that unless the top power play is going to happen for him, then we don't get a ton of ceiling
Yeah.
here. Like this projection for you might be closer to the ceiling unless there's top power play.
Mhm.
And so, what am I really going for? He's going in the range of guys like Ivan Demidov, who we talked up in the last episode. Like, even getting Mark Stone there, who, yeah, to your Jack Hughes point, like, might only play half the year, but in the 41 games he does play, he could put up, 1.25 points per game and be a difference maker. And so, is that something you might consider there? There's guys who go even later, like Kevin Fiala goes 8, 9 picks later, Brian Rust, Steven Stamkos, Beckett Seneca. Yeah, I feel like he's more in that range of
Yep.
players. Jimmy Snuggerud later. Like, there's just a lot of guys later who I feel like have more upside. And so I just don't think I'm going to find myself making that click too often this year unless his ADP is different where you're drafting. All right, Dawson Mercer, I have as right wing too, but again, I think there is a lot to come this year, and they will be trying to find some new chemistry with these lines and tweak some things here. I have him for 19 goals, 22 assists, 41 points. You have him for 19 goals, 23 assists, 42 points. So clearly you love Dawson Mercer far more than I do. I'm just going to lump in Arseny Griciuk here because they
Yep.
project very similarly, but I think we feel very differently about these two players. I have Griciuk for 19 goals, 21 assists, 40 points. You have him for 19 goals, 25 assists, 44 points. I love Griciuk, the player.
Mhm.
I feel very unsure that Sheldon Keefe is going to realize that Griciuk is a superior player to, honestly, I believe, Anthony Mantha and Dawson Mercer and potentially Timo Meier. But I don't think we're going to find that out this year under Sheldon Keefe. So if Keefe is removed from the situation, I'm going to perk up my ears a little bit and see where Griciuk falls in the next lineup. But until then, I do kind of think that he just gets typecast into this third line, drive the third line kind of role, and like he's going to be good at that. Like there, it's going to look good in
Mhm.
the Ross on the lineup to have him on your third line doing stuff that he does. But I think for fantasy purposes, you're going to wish that he was higher and getting a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Mercer to me is he's a no thought really for fantasy. I mean, this is a guy we might stream in here and there if he gets into the top six, but yeah, this is not a guy that at this point in his career is really doing a lot offensively. Yeah, he's okay defensively and can be a kind of a sneaky good passer in tight. But yeah, we've seen that show before and it doesn't work, right? So I'm not really a big fan of Dawson Mercer here this year, but yeah, I've projected Griciuk in the top six. I think we'll see him there at some point at the very least, and it could be really good. Like I know you're on board with this too. I do think that he's going to get more ice time at the very least. He had the best expected goals for percentage behind the stars on the team. So Bratt, Nico, Hughes, Meier, Dougie, and then Griciuk. Right, Griciuk was next up there, and that's not nothing, right? I really feel like Griciuk has more to offer than just offense. He's first off, he's got blazing speed. He can rush with, like, if you want to put him up with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, this guy can keep up. He can do that, right? And he's also an amazing forechecker. Like he will do that part as well. Like this guy's a dog. And I love that they re-signed him, right? They obviously value this guy and they're interested in seeing what else he can do. So I think that's another vote of confidence that maybe he can get a look. But the other thing is he's really underrated defensively. This is a player that his in zone defense tip top, no
Yep.
problems whatsoever, right? So you got two guys like Jack Hughes and Bratt that want to rip around, and this guy is the guy kind of shorting the zone a little bit, like making sure he's back, so that there's no odd man rushes. I think Griciuk's really responsible. And he's only 25. So I think there's a lot of headroom here. But like you said, is Sheldon Keefe going to do it? He hasn't done a lot of things that we as fantasy managers think are obvious, right? Like, what are you doing? But if he does get up there in the top six, I think that we can really see like a 40-point season from Griciuk. That would be amazing. I'd be very happy with that. And I think he has like 50 to 55 point upside this year if he really finds a strong role in this team in the top six. Even on power play too, I think he could hit that. But yeah, we're projecting for 40.
All right, Connor Brown, I have for 16 goals, 27 assists, 43 points. You have for 19 goals, 26 assists, and 45 points. I think this is really like similar to Mantha. I do view this pretty similarly. If Connor Brown is on the top line, top power play coming out of preseason, and it looks pretty much set that way, I'm into it. I'll draft him right there. I don't expect that I'll hold on to him all year because, like I said, I don't think Connor Brown stays there,
Yep.
but I'll take it. At the time, and we saw what he did in a short burst last year. Who's to say he couldn't do something similar again? I'd definitely take the ride there and just see what happens. But I don't think this is a guy who can sustain that over the course of, even 20 games. Like, I think this is like a 10-game stretch that you're hoping to hit with Connor Brown in terms of the production here. Even if he fits well, I just think the production won't be there. Even if he's doing the right things on the line and staying on the line, I don't think the production will sustain. And so I just view it as a very short term bet, one that I'm willing to make if and when the deployment and everything is lining up, but one that I am going to be hopping off of at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add. This is he's going to be the unsung hero of whatever line he's on, right? In terms of production, right? Which is what we care about for fantasy. Connor Brown can absolutely be kind of a glue guy, walking so these offensive stars can run. But yeah, it's to me, he's probably going to be a streamer, even if he gets power play one right off the bat. Like, I mean, where are we drafting him? Like maybe the last 2 picks. So like, yeah, I'll take a swing with Connor Brown because, like you said, he'll probably be off that. They'll be switching things up. Like he's not a dynamic offensive player, but he can get in where he fits in, and I think there's some value there. And also, he has a glowing endorsement of Hughes and Jesper Bratt, and that's in multiple interviews, right? So they really like this guy. They like playing with him. I could see him on that top line at times here this year.
All right, Luke Hughes, I have for 11 goals, 42 assists, 53 points. You have for 11 goals, 44 assists, 55 points. We're pretty tight on the projection here. I do agree that Hughes gets the majority of the power play time, but I do think it's quite possible, even probable, that they do split it a bit again, unless things like just work right from the start with whoever's on power play one, then maybe it sticks that way. Hughes is the future. Like they have a long-term big contract with this player. Dougie Hamilton at some point will fade off. If not this year, then at some point in the future. And so I think you just keep betting on that overall, and you'll be happy more often than you won't be. That being said, like I'm still like not that into it. The fact that Hughes, like he took a step backward last year, I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat that in basically any way you want to look at it. In terms of his overall play, in terms of his offensive play, I don't think he really did anything positive to make us more excited about him going into this year. That being said, things are not always linear in terms of defenseman development, especially a guy who's thrust into really a top pair role last year. They wanted him to figure that out. Maybe this year they're like, okay, you did top pair last year, now it's top power play as well. Now you're like the full-time number one guy. Now you're him. That's possible. This is not a guy like similar to Jack Hughes. He's not going to throw the body around him for 23 hits, 70 blocks. Like it's really not great stuff in terms of the peripherals. He really does avoid trying to put his body on the line in any situation, which I mean, maybe that's good for durability concerns, but aside from that, it does feel like there's just not a lot of oomph to add to this 53-point projection here. And so it might be a little bit of an empty calories situation that you're getting, that you more often associate with like those low goal total, high assist total forwards that we often get. You're kind of getting that same effect here with Luke Hughes. And so I'm not like excited to draft Luke Hughes. I do think there's still like a scenario. I think we saw some flashes of it earlier in his career, not so much last year, but earlier, where we're like, okay, we could see a scenario where he does have that 60 plus point potential and really goes on a bender and actually makes a difference for fantasy. But the problem is for him to actually make that difference for fantasy, I think he has to be 60 plus points. And I don't think that's the most likely scenario this year.
Yeah. It's a really good point you're making. I do think there's a lot of ceiling here, but everything I read about Luke Hughes and sort of his development and what he's done so far, it's like one of the biggest differences between him and like his brothers is the ability to look ahead, right? And whereas Quinn Hughes or Jack Hughes are always kind of peripherally scanning and deciding what they're going to do next, where it seems to me that Luke Hughes is he's rushing plays. You know what I mean? And maybe he's still he obviously has amazing skating, some of the best skating you'll see, right? This guy's got an offensive mind, purely offensive mind, just same level of creativity. But it's like when push comes to shove and he's getting pressured, there's just some interesting decision-making that doesn't always add up. And yeah, he's also the third brother. I mean, think of the pressure that is. You got two superstars, right? These are superstars. Quinn Hughes is arguably the best defenseman in the league. Jack Hughes just got the golden goal in the Olympics. This guy's a stud on the ice. And then you got Luke Hughes out here just limping out to I got 40 points or whatever. It's what are you doing, Luke Hughes? But he's still a young guy. He's turning 23. And I think that he will figure it out for sure. A couple weird things happened last year. His IPP dropped massively. He had a 57% IPP at even strength last year, which is insanely high for defensemen. But when you see a guy of this caliber and what he's able to do, yeah, you can be okay, that makes some sense. Yeah, he moves the puck really well. A drop to 40 seems low. So I feel like he'll kind of figure that out. And yeah, the power play, we'll have to see what happens there. I think that ceiling for him this season, if things go well, is 60. I feel like he can get up to 60. But am I projecting that? No, right? We need to see more. We need to see his decision-making kind of improve and putting players in better positions, putting himself in better positions, and not really just relying on raw skill, but kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to say, play more as a team, a team player, you know what I mean? And sort of expand his thought process. I know that's getting a little ethereal here, but yeah, all that to say, great player. I think I do like his value, ADP. I think he's at 132. I'll take a ride there. I feel like if you're going to draft Luke Hughes, make sure you're drafting him as the bottom of a tier, as opposed to reaching for Luke Hughes, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I will say in the 11th round where he's going, taking a swing there on a guy who could hit 60 points if things go his way. I don't hate it, but yeah, he is going to have to really hit that for him to be a guy that actually changes your fantasy lineup. And, maybe if you're drafting a defenseman in the double-digit rounds, that is probably the best case scenario anyway, so maybe it's not that bad, but yeah. Something to think about for sure. Dougie Hamilton, I have for 14 goals, 30 assists, rounding down to 43 points. You have him for 14 goals, 31 assists, 45 points. So we see that one pretty similarly as well. Again, don't think there's a lot of ceiling here unless you were to just kind of somehow get the top power play the entire season and get to 20 plus power play points. I'm for 14 to get to 43. So yeah, the peripherals are obviously much stronger here. I'm for 231 shots over a hit and over a block per game. So that stuff is a little bit more in play with Dougie Hamilton. I think he's fine as your fourth defenseman pick. There will probably be some situations where he'll go 10 to 15 games of the regular season. You'll be like, man, he is doing really nothing for me right now except 2 shots here, 2 shots there kind of thing. And he's going ahead of Luke Hughes in drafts, which I don't love. 110th in the last 20 APL mocks we've done here. So yeah, the price to acquire is higher. The ceiling feels lower. The floor is more safe because of the peripherals. But again, I'm just not loving the price overall.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. Honestly, I think that we know who this player is. I don't think his role is really going to change. I think the team around him has changed, and so that will raise his floor. But yeah, I'm projecting him as a power play 2 guy, good periffs because he shoots a lot. I've got him over 250 shots. So yeah, it's Dougie Hamilton season. Douglas Hamilton the third. All right, that's what his mom says when she's calling him in for dinner. Douglas. Yeah, but his friends call him Dougie. Anyways, losing it there. But yeah, I think the floor is solid. Getting him, I would take Luke Hughes over Dougie Hamilton all the time. It doesn't make sense to me to get him there at 110. I'd be happy to get him around, 130, 140 though. That's feeling much better. You're getting double-digit goals. You're getting all those shots, and you're getting a stash for power play 1, or maybe just power play 1's right out the gate. Right? It's not confirmed. We're projecting Luke Hughes, but could be Dougie. So I think it's just the value. That's the issue there.
All right, top 3 targets, Blake. Give it to me.
Give it to me, Neil. Oh, God, Neil. I'm taking Jack Hughes, number 1. Okay, that's fine. I like him there at 10. I've seen him go a lot later, especially in normie drafts. Oh man. Like I did my first Yahoo mock. What a freaking joke that was. It's always a debacle. You're like, how is this even a thing? I don't know. Like, I think he fell to like the third round. I'm like, what? This is like, I skipped him in the second round. I'm like, nah. And then he's there. I'm like, okay, I'll take Jack Hughes in the third round. But anyways, I feel like there's a lot of value there. Nico Hischier, we talked about the safe floor there and potential ceiling, especially if the team's floor as a whole raises up and they're able to get the biz offensively. And then I've got Luke Hughes here at number 3 for the reasons we mentioned. 132 ADP for Luke Hughes, potential power play 1 quarterback on a potential top 10 power play. Is that crazy, Nate?
I don't think it's crazy, but yeah, we'll find out sooner rather than later. Top 3 targets for me. Number 1 is Anthony Mantha. Really, for me, this is just placeholder for whoever's that line 1, power play 1 player. I assume it'll be the same player in both spots, that they'll try to keep that chemistry across both spots in the lineup, both strengths of play. But yeah, Anthony Mantha is my projection, so that's who I'm going with there. Jack Hughes, number 2. Like I said, I think I would take him even earlier than the 10.8 that he's going in APL drafts in some spots, so love that. In the first round, Nico Hischier, number 3. I'm never going to be mad at a 7th round price tag on a guy that I feel is probably going to hit at least 70 points this year with some good peripherals.
Oh, yeah.
All right, time to get into a really interesting team, the New York Islanders, and I'm not even being facetious. Key departures: Anders Lee, the captain, is gone. Maxim Shabanov, Jonathan Drouin, some addition by subtraction potentially there, but arrivals here: Braden Shen, they acquired at the trade deadline last year. Didn't result in a playoff berth for them, but they've got him still under contract, so he'll be back. And I think he actually fits pretty well into what they're trying to do here, so I do like that acquisition overall. Matthias Michelli is really their biggest offseason signing. Just another kind of skill playmaking forward to add to the group here. And then Vitek Vanacek, they signed, it sounds like Semyon Varlamov is going to be coming back this year. Finally, after obviously dealing with some pretty serious injuries that have kept him out of the NHL for a while, but Vanacek is their depth goaltending option. How are we feeling about these departures and arrivals, Blake?
Losing your captain is definitely going to just change the vibe of the team. Losing Anders Lee there. Maxim Shabanov, Jonathan Drouin, no thoughts really for this team last year. Braden Shen was a really nice pickup for them. I think he's sneaky good with his passing, and can play up and down the lineup wherever he needs to. So all good stuff. Matthias Michelli's a nice swing. We saw he actually, I thought he did worse last year with the Leafs, but he actually had an okay season in terms of like what we thought he might do. It obviously came nowhere close to any ceiling or anything like that, but the Leafs were terrible, which we know. So I think that's a really good swing, but I think the biggest addition here is obviously the coach. Pete DeBoer is going to change the way this team looks. He's going to change the way they play. I mean, it was really bad last year. So I think I'm excited to talk about the coaching with you. Let's get into that.
All right, let's get into it. Pierre DeBoer will quote-unquote return after only 4 games at the end of last year.
The incumbent.
I think that was a really, really smart move, and one that I wish the Leafs would have made to acquire DeBoer instead of, do this whole rigmarole to end up on Jim Hiller. So I like this move. I've kind of liked, what the Islanders have been doing the last few years. I think they made some pretty astute moves behind the scenes. In real life, I think this is like a Cronin to Quenneville stratosphere level
I love that
coaching change. If we get half of that for fantasy, we should be very excited. I still think this is a great change for fantasy. I feel like it's going very under the radar for some people right now. Like, I don't see a lot of excitement about the Islanders. People are like, it's the same old. I don't think people realize how bad Patrick Waugh is at coaching and how good Pierre DeBoer is at coaching. The one thing I will say is Pierre DeBoer has spread minutes across his top 9 in the past in Dallas, obviously in particular. That was, a function of him having a really strong top 9 to spread those minutes across, and so it might have just been, what he decided to do there. But you look at the Islanders roster too, and it does feel like a bit more of an even top 9, especially when you look at the wingers. And so yeah, I think there's a chance that we get a little bit more of that evening effect from DeBoer here too. What do you like about DeBoer in Long Island?
Long Island. I think it's awesome. I'm really excited about it. I always put out a poll on our YouTube, like, oh, which team are you most excited about? You know, so I had these 4 teams here, and people, it was like 7% the Islanders. No one gives a damn. And you should. You absolutely should. I think that, like you said, this is going to be a big change in what this team looks like on the ice. Remember Pittsburgh last year, folks? You remember what they were able to do? Like, DeBoer is he's a top level coach. This guy's excellent. And like you said, to get him in to even be with the team and see what that looks like, see the facilities, all that stuff for 4 games, that's massive, right? He was able to sort of do a quick assessment on his players, on his roster there. And yeah, this team obviously needed an overhaul. Like under Patrick Waugh, this team, it was gross, right? Like Patrick Waugh prioritized possession, where I think like Peter DeBoer sort of leans more into structure and also high volume shooting. That's something that I've been able, like everything I read about Pete DeBoer, yeah, high volume shooting. We're looking at transition play. We're looking at heavy forechecks. You know, if you look back at the amount of high danger chances that Sorokin faced last year, like I wrote it down. Oh, I got so many notes here, but like, yeah, like it was something crazy. Like it was the third worst in the league, the New York Islanders, in high danger chances against per 60 at even strength. That's according to Natural Stat Trick. And but you know, they were 7th worst in expected goals against per 60 and 11th best in goals against per 60. So yeah, Sorokin had a great year and really kind of masked a lot of how terrible Patrick Roy was. But all that to say, I think this is going to be really good. Like I like Pittsburgh as a comp here, and I think we're going to get some really efficient seasons out of some of these middle sixers.
All right, let's talk about the power play here. Bo Horvat, Mathew Barzal, Matthew Schaefer, obvious locks. Braden Shen and Calum Ritchie spent time on the top power play towards the end of last year, or kind of the most common guys there. Kyle Palmieri, by all accounts, will be back after suffering an ACL tear last year, early in last season. If he's back, do we think he goes straight back to power play 1, where he has been more often than not, or does Shen's acquisition, Ritchie's ascension keep him off? Where do you think all that lines up?
It's hard. It's really hard because we have so many changes, right? You got the new coach. You've also got an assistant coach, a new assistant coach, Rocky Thompson. He runs the power play there. And yeah, well, I mean, it's just really hard to project. So my gut is telling me that Palmieri will probably start on power play 2. I think they want to take a look at some of these good young players they have, right? I mean, I've got Horvat, I've got Barzal, and I've got Calum Ritchie as a net front. I got Matias Michelli as a flank, and then obviously Schaefer. So that's sort of the way I'm seeing it. And then, yeah, but I mean, I could be convinced any way here. Like it's a bit flimsy just because we don't know really. No one said anything. We're kind of doing some guesswork here, but that would make the most sense for me in terms of what I'm seeing here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a fair number of guys get a look there. Like if I'm just looking at the minutes that I assigned to each of these players, I have Schaefer and Horvat and Barzal each at 3 minutes 15 seconds apiece. Then my next closest is Shen at 2:45, and then I have Palmieri and Ritchie both at 2.5. I have Michelli at 2. So that's kind of how I've seen it in terms of the minute allocation. I think if Michelli's on your top power play, then your season is probably already in the toilet, and that's where he scores most of his points, is when the season is in the toilet and nothing matters anymore and he's allowed to play. So that's kind of how I view that player at this point after watching him be terrible until the games didn't matter for
The
Toronto
Leafs fan
last year.
here, folks. All right, he's biased. All right, your bias is showing, Nathan.
Oh, I'm well aware. I just needed to get that out of my system and hanging on to that one for a little too long. But yeah, that's how I see it. Honestly, yeah, I don't think Michelli is a difference maker on the power play. I think he can pass the puck around as well as anybody, but if you're looking for somebody to actually elevate and do some things that other players can't, he is not that player. So that's the way that I would see it, but I'm definitely open to be proven wrong. I think those 2 spots are definitely up in the air, and very much so at this point in time. All right, let's dig in on projections. Bo Horvat, I have for 38 goals, 36 assists, rounding that down to 73 points here. You have him for 37 goals, 34 assists, 71 points. This comes with a boatload of shots. I've got him for 260 shots, 62 hits, 45 blocks, decent numbers there as well. Bo Horvat, when I plug all this in, like he comes out way higher in my rankings than you might expect. Like he's in right behind Sebastian Aho and Mika Zibanejad in my rankings if you do that in average fantasy points per game. So that is kind of the echelon that Bo Horvat is being extended to. That's with 20 power play points for me. That's not even considering a scenario in which the power play really does pop off. I really like Bo Horvat at cost this year. I think that that's going to be one that you're going to have to take into account come draft day.
I tried very hard to hate on Bo Horvat this year, but you're absolutely right. When you plug in the numbers and look at some of the underlying stuff here, like this guy does so much well. It's just so much very well for fantasy. I mean, things like, he's not an elite play driver, but he's very efficient at what he does there. Generates a ton of shots like for himself. But yeah, looking at his microstats, like passes from the center lane, high danger assists, that's what you want to see, right? Like, and I've seen it firsthand, right? Like he's a great player. He always has been a great player. I think he's like a tier down kind of. He's like I don't even know what I'm trying to say. He's a tier down from a really like solid, like superstar kind of player. But in terms of like face-offs, you're getting a ton of face-off wins with Horvat. You're getting a ton of minutes. And I think if you put him with the right people, you can see him really pop off. And I just, again, the main thing you said there, I really agree with. I like him at cost here. To get a guy with the underlying metrics of Bo Horvat, where you're getting him in ADP, it's crazy. And I also like, the ass man, Emil Heineman, who played with Bo Horvat. I think that's a really nice piece. And Kyle Palmieri potentially being his winger as well, coming back healthy. Like that's a guy that can do stuff as well, be at the end of some of, Horvat's passes and things like that. So it's a nice first line, and I'm interested to see how they kind of perform under Pete DeBoer.
Yep. Heineman, I have for 20 goals, 13 assists, 33 points. You have for 23 goals, 13 assists, 36 points. Kind of just a crash, bang, shoot, get to the net, knock in the puck kind of player. But we like that for fantasy. 246 hits I have him for and 162 shots. That'll play in some deeper bangers, cats formats for sure. I think that you can look at Heineman as long as he's on this line with Horvat as a guy that could have some fantasy relevance.
Yep, not too much to add. He's a beefer, right? He's a plug and play there. This is your board battle. This is your grimy guy getting the puck to the more talented players like Horvat and Palmieri. But he's got an amazing one-timer. The ass man. Oh my God. Great one-timer. He's the type of guy who'll get down on one knee. He doesn't give a damn, like prime Connor Garland. Okay. Emil Heineman, he does that. Big hits, big energy. I think the floor is really good. I don't think there's any ceiling. So that's kind of where we're at there. But bangers leagues, bang, you're getting this guy in your life.
All right, let's talk about Palmieri. I have him for 24 goals, 22 assists, 46 points. You have him for 23 goals, 27 assists, and 50 points. I think I like Palmieri. I am very worried about him returning from this ACL injury at his age. He is not the youngest player in the NHL by any stretch at this point. He's been playing since 2011. He is, where is it? Oh my goodness, he's 35 years old. That's the same age as me. That's disconcerting.
Easy.
But yeah, I can imagine what it would be like to try to come back from an ACL tear at my age, and I don't think it would be that much fun. So I do have some concerns with Palmieri's return. Assuming he is healthy, though, and fully ready to go, and then he's no holds barred right back into it, I think you're going to get some streamer weeks out of him. I don't think he's going to be a player that you're hanging on to for any significant length of time, but he will have some hot streaks. He will spend a few weeks in your lineup here or there.
Yeah, this is one of those guys we end up talking about mid-season. We're like, and one of your best shooters this week, Kyle Palmieri. Like, he generates shots and chances at a pretty good clip, when he's going, right? But yeah, like you said, his age, coming back off injury, it's probably going to be a slow start. But who's behind him on the right side to really take him out of the top six? Like Calum Ritchie's there. Yeah, I think Calum Ritchie will see a bigger role here under Pete DeBoer. I'm happy about that. But I mean, Simon Holmstrom, I think I'd rather have Palmieri out there. So I think his role is safe. We'll see what happens with the power play. How many power play points did you get him for? I got him for 13.
Yeah, I've got him for 13 as well.
Yeah. I mean, that'll play. 50 points, Kyle Palmieri. Buddy, stay away from my drywall, and you shouldn't shotgun a monster, okay? That's a sipping drink. Okay, buddy, no. He's got a beautiful beard as well. I want to shout that man out. And also, I want to shout out, remember his assist when he got injured last year?
Yeah.
That right there, that's draftable. Okay, I want that man on my team. That's one of the best assists I've ever seen. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just YouTube Kyle Palmieri assist when he got injured. The man is an absolute legend. So yeah, I hope he has a big year. But yeah, lots of variance here with this team.
All right, Mathew Barzal, I have for 23 goals, 56 assists, 79 points. You have him for 24 goals, 59 assists, 83 points. A lot of love for Barzal here. He's still not managed to be a particularly efficient player, but maybe DeBoer is the guy who finally unlocks his potential. I do think this is a guy who, if everything worked out right, if he had like a true trigger man on his line, like a 40 goal scorer, put Dylan Gunther on his line, and let's see what Barzal could do, that kind of scenario. I do think there's a 90-plus point player here with Barzal. I don't know that we get that this year, but it wouldn't be like all that shocking to me if DeBoer unlocks Barzal to a new level in 26-27.
I hope it happens, buddy. God dang. I love Matt Barzal. One of the things that I saw almost universally looking up the Islanders here is that they want Barzal to play at the 2C. So getting him away from Bo Horvat, which is interesting, right? But Barzal wants that too. He was playing that way towards the end of the year there, and that's where he feels more comfortable and where he can potentially do more damage. So, I like that. I mean, putting a player in a position to succeed, I think is a smart thing to do, especially when you've got a guy that is basically like a puck possession god out there. This guy's unbelievable. His skating is elite. You mentioned his inefficiencies, like, I don't know that that's really going to change. I don't know that he'll ever be an efficient shooter, but he's unbelievable in zone with his puck possessions. I was watching so many highlights of Barzal, and I was getting pretty jacked up. But one of the things you notice is like, it's a lot of fluff, it's a lot of like him circling around doing crazy stuff and then like no payoff. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't get it to the area where it needs to go. And maybe that's to do with his line mates or who he's playing with potentially. But I don't know. I think that this season coming up, I upped his IPP a little bit as a 2C because I just think that, when he shares the ice with a guy like Bo Horvat, who's a pretty good scorer, he scores at a good clip. I think that, he's going to be involved in less. Like it's, like many of these goals are like multi-pass sequences, right? So if a defenseman starts a breakout or something like that, passes to Barzal gets into the zone, sets up, gets a chance, feeds a winger sets up Horvat, like Barzal gets the secondary assist, whatever. But I think if a defenseman, like Matthew Schaefer, always amazing, directly passes to a winger who sets up Horvat, Barzal's not on that scoring play, right? And his IPP gets down a little bit. So I think he'll be more involved in the scoring on his line. And I feel excited about that. That's why I've got him for a 83-point projection. I feel like there's 90 points in this man, but he's been kind of under the thumb of just a really bad power play in Long Island for forever, right? And then bad coaching with Patrick Roy. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, one of the reasons Barzal hasn't been able to stick at center is a 42% career face-off percentage. But if Braden Shen is on this line, then that gives them another option in the face-off dot. Shen 54% last year. I have Shen for 20 goals, 31 assists, rounded down to 50 points here. You have him for 20 goals, 28 assists, and 48 points. I like Shen in this spot, kind of in this center/wing role on the second line with Barzal. I think it makes sense in theory. He's a hitter. He can go be that physical presence on this line that I think this line probably needs. And I do think that with a full season, they could work out some pretty good chemistry here. I do think there's also a number of iterations. They could try moving a few guys around here, so I'm not like completely married to this, but I think there's at least a ceiling scenario in which this really does work, this kind of second line that we've sketched out here, and that could lead to best case scenarios for Barzal and Shen.
Yep. Shen is a guy that we'll be rostering as a streamer. I think we're not drafting him. If he gets power play 1, even then it's has not been a good power play here in New York. So we'll have to see, you know, if that power play is popping off and he's on there, sure. Yeah, we'll be much more interested. But at the very least, Schenn is an underrated passer. I think you look at microstats there, all three zone stuff, shot and chance assists, pretty good, right? So he's generating a bunch there. And I just think a full season of playing with a guy like Matt Barzal should raise your floor. And, you know, we've got Calum Ritchie here as the right wing there on the second line. And I think he's going to have a really good year too. So all that to say, I mean, I've got him for 48. You got him for 50. I think that'll play with the big hits there. You're definitely going to be rostering this guy in like a bangers league.
Calum Ritchie is the right wing 2 here, according to our setup. I've got him for 18 goals, 29 assists, 47 points. You've got him for 21 goals, 30 assists, 51 points. So this is the biggest difference in our projections, 4.5 points higher for you. I think we both see this similarly as the guy with the most potential to surprise on this roster, and a guy that could, in a best case scenario, jump up to like a 60-point season and, yeah, just kind of announce himself as taking that next step in the NHL.
Yep. It's interesting digging in on Calum Ritchie. Like, his IPP at even strength was 82%. Did you see that? Like, I mean, that's very interesting. Like, I have to, sometimes I don't even understand why an IPP is so high. Like, I had to dig in a little bit on that. And like some of the stuff that was coming up was like, you know, if the team suffers from like a low on ice shooting percentage, which the Islanders did for a lot of time while he was out there, like he's just in on more goals, but they're not scoring very many, right? So that's why his IPP is so crazy. So we had to regress that a little bit, but I do think this is a guy as like kind of a net front guy, as a board battle guy that can really make a difference. Like, you would think Braden Schenn is kind of that forechecker, but he's not really that guy. Barzal is not that guy, but Calum Ritchie is. This guy's a dog. He can get in, get the puck to those players, and he's got the hands in tight to really make a difference. So I think there's some ceiling here, and obviously, you know, I think Pete DeBoer owes it to the team and city to kind of put this guy in a position to succeed, because I think there's some ways for him to get to kind of a ceiling projection.
All right, third line here we have as Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Matthias Michelli, Simon Holmstrom. I think this could work. Michelli is kind of the odd man out on this line in some respects, for sure, but maybe that's what they're looking for, to try to balance this line out a little bit. Two defensively responsible guys, and then there's Michelli doing his own thing in the corner.
Oh my God.
So Jean-Gabriel Pageau, I have for 14 goals, 25 assists, round it down to 38 points. You have him for 13 goals, 26 assists, round that down to 39 points. Michelli I have for 17 goals, 31 assists, 48 points. You have him for 14 goals, 36 assists, 50 points. Holmstrom I have for 20 goals, 26 assists, 46 points. You have him for 21 goals, 29 assists, 50 points. So, yeah, guys that could potentially be on rosters in some deeper leagues this year as streamers, for sure, depending where they are in the lineup. They'll get moved around a bit. I like Holmstrom as a guy who's pretty efficient. I'm projected for 18.4% shooting percentage, which always feels kind of crazy, but
Right.
It's been a few seasons now where he's kind of just done that thing. And so I do think that he'll probably be in this range once again. I don't think there's a lot exciting here. I don't think there's a lot of upside with any of these players. Even if you told me right now that Matthias Michelli was going to be on the top line with Bo Horvat and Mathew Barzal the entire season and on the top power play, I don't really know how high I would stretch that projection. Like, I don't think it would get to 60 points, and with him not really providing a ton of shots or hits or blocks or any of the peripheral stuff, I just don't think that that's a player that I'll be drafting. So probably just names to know for your deep league streamers.
Yeah, I'm not drafting any of these players here, but I am interested in Michelli. Like, we're talking fantasy, right? Yeah, don't you roll your eyes at me, you son of a gut.
The Eric Holla moment of this episode.
Oh no. Okay. Well, you know what? I want to see Michelli and Holla on the same line. Maybe some NHL GMs can make that happen, right? That. Yeah, I think I would. All right, that makes me feel good. In the
That's your ideal second line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then put Tony DeAngelo up on the right wing. Just put him out of position. That all sounds good to me. But Michelli, this guy's a really good facilitator. We talked about it last year, but it's no joke. This guy is really good at playmaking. So that's nothing to sneeze at. I like the, you know, I'm gonna try and keep this brief because I know Nate hates when I talk about third line players, but you know, Michelli, I think his lack of defensive ability like gets completely absorbed by JGP, John Gabriel Pajot, who's amazing. Holmstrom's no slouch either. Holmstrom is an extremely efficient shooter because he kind of just doesn't take any shots unless he knows he's going to score. You know what I mean? So I like that. And, you get in high danger passes from Matias Michelli. And I think this is a player that has something to prove. They brought him in here for a reason. They actually targeted him. I like what Matthew Darche has been doing as the GM here. And I trust a little bit. It's kind of, we like Sonny Mehta and some of the moves he did. I think Darche is another sharp, and he identified Michelli as a player that could potentially help this team and maybe help this power play as well. So I'm not discounting Michelli the way Nathan Groot Niblink is. All right. He's tooting right in the man's face, just sullying his good name. Unbelievable stuff. But yeah, these are all streamers, by the way. But JGP, I do want to shout him out. This guy led the league in shorthanded points last year with 7. Also a face-off wizard. This guy was 8th overall in the league in face-off win percentage with 59.1%. So shout out to you, JGP. You're a dang legend.
Speaking of legends, let's talk a little bit about Mathew Schaefer. Ooh. I have Schaefer for 26 goals, 48 assists, rounding down to 73 points. Young for 22 goals, 49 assists, 71 points. Really, we need him to continue his solipsistic philosophy for maximum fantasy goodness, but I think he's going to do it because I think he is just that damn good. I have him for 262 shots, over 110 blocks. I think he brings peripherals as well as the point production. We've talked about it before. This is a guy who has that Cale Makar, that Quinn Hughes kind of trajectory already. We talked about him coming back after the Olympic break and being elite, like top 2 and not always number 2 in a lot of fantasy metrics that we're looking at amongst all defensemen. I think he gets the 25-minute treatment. I think he's up for it. I think the ceiling on Mathew Schaefer is the limit does not exist, is what I think about Mathew Schaefer. I think this is a guy that we could be looking at as a generational caliber player in the vein of a Cale Makar, and I think you should draft him every single time.
Buddy, oh man, you're jacking me up. I'm here for it, man. Mathew Schaefer, this is... what he's able to do at his age is crazy. Like, obviously, we're looking at the fantasy production, which was amazing. 59 points in 82 games, 23 goals. Damn, right? He's 18, folks. That's wild stuff. But what you maybe don't see if you're just looking at the box scores, like how good he is defensively. Like at this age, like that's not normal. It's not normal for a defenseman to come in, play these kind of minutes. Like these are difficult minutes. He's playing against the other team's best players in a lot of cases, right? He's killing penalties. He's playing all the minutes on the power play, and he's doing it with a smile on his face. I think that's another thing that really separates Mathew Schaefer here is his mentals. He seems really strong. I mean, we've seen one season, so, I'll take it with a grain of salt, but he seems absolutely strong. He's a dog. I keep thinking about that play where I think he was doing just a chase down. It was an empty net. They were losing like 3-1. And like the guy comes over the blue line. He's about to pop it in the empty net. And this guy rips in and just dives, stops the thing. Like that really kind of sums up this guy's attitude to me and why he's so liked by his teammates and why I think he's going to be really successful in this league. So all that to say, yeah, I mean, we've got big projections for him. I'm happy to draft him in the second round. I think that feels good. Because I think there's ceiling here as well. Like this is a guy still figuring it out offensively. Like, yeah, he's really good at rushing. He's good at making plays, but he can be better, right? I think what I said is separated him is his ability to play in all 3 zones at that age and with the big workload that he was in. So you're absolutely right. I think this is going to be a generational guy. Maybe we see 85, 90 points at some point in his career. That would be amazing. But I think 70 feels really good here for his age 19 year.
I have Schaefer projected for slightly more fantasy points per game than Rasmus Dahlin. I place him closer to the top 5 defensemen for fantasy than I do to the next tier, the Lane Hudsons.
I love that.
The players below that. I think Schaefer is much closer to those others, and you're not going to have to spend a second-round pick in a lot of leagues to acquire his services. Tony DeAngelo rounding it out here. 8 goals, 27 assists, 35 points for me. 7 goals, 30 assists, and 37 points for you. Not much to say here. Really just a break glass in case of emergency power play replacement should Schaefer go down to injury at any point next year. I think he would be fine to roster at that point, but it's not a guy you're going to have on your roster unless he's on power play 1.
Yeah, he's a stash there. He's throwing it D'Angelo. You gotta pop the collar. And Tony D'Angelo actually got a custom jersey. You know that the New York Islanders are doing that fan jersey promotion, right? Where fans are creating the next third jersey. Well, I sent in a submission where it was it was for just Tony D'Angelo in particular. It was just a popped collar, right? Just straight up and like a deep V, obviously a deep V with chest hair, like simulated. Right. And then a collar just popped up past his ears. That's how Tony D'Angelo gets to biz. Garbage haircut, but who gives a damn? Or he's got a helmet on, right? That's fine. So anyways, what the hell am I talking about? What did I give this guy? 37 points. It's generous.
All right. Top 3 targets, Blake. Give it to me.
Oh yeah, we're giving it. Mathew Schaefer, get him in your life. Number 1, we talked about why. Matt Barzal, I'm always going to be in on this player. Once I started digging in on microstats and having interviews with Corey Schneider, which you should definitely check out, by the way, we have a bunch of interviews with Corey Schneider on our channel here. So just search that up. But he really got me onto players like Nick Ehlers and Nate did as well. But and Mathew Barzal as players that just tilt the ice out there. They're elite rushers, generating chances like a hot damn. And they Ehlers and Barzal, both on teams where they're not really utilizing their skills to the best of their ability. But eventually something's got to give. We saw Ehlers pop off here this last year, even in not in crazy minutes. And I think Barzal has another level here. So I've got him as number 2. And then Calum Ritchie just for the upside. I think there's 60-point upside, especially if he gets power play 1. And then that's my story. And I'm sticking to it. What about you, Nathan?
Myself, Schaefer, number 1 with a bullet. Bo Horvat going in the 100s. ADP in APL mocks is a travesty. And Calum Ritchie, because I think he is the player with the most ability to potentially surprise people this season. All right. We've reached the halfway point. Go to applesandginos.com/APL. That is where you're going to find the Apples and Ginos Patron League. You can sign up there. Get yourself a $4 per month membership to the Apples and Ginos Patreon. And then you are set to go. You are able to register for the APL. We are getting close now. We are going to start putting people into leagues in the first week of September. So you got to get yourself in there sooner rather than later. Head over to applesandginos.com/APL. It's pretty much all laid out there. If you have any questions, anything you're not sure about, please do hit us up. Hit us up in the comments. Hit us up in DMs. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have about that. But it is going to be bigger and better than ever this year. We're super excited about all the changes we've made this year to make it a little bit more sustainable, to give people more feedback, to make the leagues themselves more entertaining, to give people more avenues to discuss what's going on across the entire league, all the tier systems, but also within their individual leagues as well. So that is all new this year, and we couldn't be more excited. Come join us, applesandginos.com/APL. All right, Blake. It's the New York Rangers going from a high to a low here, but we're going to get through it. Key departures: Vincent Trocheck, Will Borgen, Connor Sheary. Key arrivals: Pavel Dorofeyev, Marcus Pettersson, Sean Durzi, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Jonas Korpisalo. Just another unbelievable display of feckless profligacy from Chris Drury. But what can you do? I mean, they definitely address some weaknesses, but this is also a team that at the core lost Artemi Panarin and Vincent Trocheck from where they started a year ago. And I don't know that you can just patch those holes with a few new players and call it even. I think they did have to address the back end, and they did definitely do that here, but they kind of did that by unaddressing the front end, and now that's a weakness, and I don't know that they're better at the end of all of it. How do you feel?
All I know is that the back end and the front end are both undressed. And what the hell am I looking at right now? I'm sorry about this. Damn it. Just dress that up. All right. This is not that kind of place. The family show. Yeah. Sorry. It's interesting. I just say interesting whenever that's all I have. Yeah, exactly. I say interesting. You say fair enough. Can someone clip that? Anyways, yeah. Losing Trocheck, I'm never going to be a fan of that, but I mean, they needed to do something. I don't think it was just a god awful year for the Rangers. They were not able to generate anything at even strength. It was crazy. So yeah, moving off from Trocheck makes some sense, I guess. And I like, yeah, you don't replace guys like Panarin. You just don't. This is going to be a different looking team. They're going to have to get into the systems a little differently here. But Dorofeyev is a nice swing. It's a risky swing. It's a really risky swing there. I mean, thankfully the salaries went way up after they signed Dorofeyev, so now it doesn't look as bad. But I mean, 11 million for him after what he's, kind of his body of work and how he got there is a. Yeah, that's risky bisky to me. But I mean, Marcus Pettersson, Sean Durzi, I'm a big fan of both those players and what they bring to the back end here in the Rangers. I think that was a major problem. Don't you laugh. Mute yourself, for God's sake. I mean, for the audio listener, at least. Damn it. Yeah. Marcus Pettersson, Sean Durzi, great defenseman in transition. I think that's really going to help the team. And then the jerk store, whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, just a good third liner, but it's going to be tough sledding, I think, for the Rangers. They're going to have to figure something out with their coaching. What a segue.
What a segue. Mike Sullivan returns for his second season. The question that I came to here is, when was the last time he had a season that made us think he was a good coach? I think that he might be the single coach across the entire league where we're like, oh yeah, Mike Sullivan, great coach. And then you start to think about it a little bit longer. You're like, wait, when did he actually do something where we're like, yeah, Mike Sullivan did something here that was net positive for his team? Like, I know it's a short tournament, totally different from an NHL season, but like that game against Canada, on paper, I think the Canada and USA teams look relatively even to most accounts, and Canada dominated them at 5v5, and USA comes out with a win, but that was definitely not the coaching story of that game, and Sullivan didn't have an answer in that situation. And I feel like we've seen Mike Sullivan not have an answer for much of the last 3-4 seasons that he's been a head coach, and I'm not sure that this is a lineup that can sustain a coach not having an answer.
Yeah, I think that's a really cromulent point. Yeah, it's Sullivan. I think he was a good coach. There's no question. I feel like, you win the Stanley Cup, like that's part of that is coaching, right? He's also a guy that had Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin in their prime on his team for years and years and years. So that definitely masks any issues with coaching or adjustments, right? These guys are good enough to go out there and just get it done themselves. I do feel, however, that Sullivan has not adjusted in the way that coaches like, Paul Maurice is a guy I love to talk about, who's adjusted, right? Even Rick Bowness to some degree. Like there are coaches that are adjusting to the new game here, to the new style. You can't, like, under Sullivan, this team here was super stagnant on offense. They played dump and chase hockey. No BS, folks. How about extra BS in your skates? All right, damn it. Don't put that in there. But yeah, like what's happening in the NHL today is a more modern possession style, right? It doesn't need to be all that. You have to have balance, and all these systems truly are kind of similar, right? But Sullivan to me seems like the type of guy, he comes into a new team. He's like, we got to be hard to play against. All right. We got to get in the corners. No BS. We're going to be really difficult. It's like, but this team, they took it too far, right? They lacked creativity. They became very straight ahead. And I think that there's a bit of an overcorrection here for Mike Sullivan. And I think he realizes that. And we're going to have to, like, we're going to test his mettle a little bit. Like, how do you adjust? Because now you've lost your best offensive player, a guy that has no business playing dump and chase hockey, right? Like, and now you still have an older group. You haven't really addressed that. You brought in Dorofeyev here, who's not a playmaker, not really a rush guy. So I'm interested to see what Mike Sullivan does. I do feel that, again, some of the moves they made on defense are really going to help this team if Mike Sullivan continues to want to play that way, right? There's a pathway there, but they just weren't getting it done last year. And I think they really dumbed down their offensive game way too much, and it just became stressful, right? They're dumping the puck in when there's really no reason to do that, right? I think I read an interview with JT Miller where he said as much too. He's like, yeah, we just started throwing the puck away, right? It's just giveaways at that point. They're generating nothing. So we'll have to see. Sorry, I'm thrashing on Mike Sullivan here. I do think that he's a good coach. I hope that we see some adjustments that need to happen here.
Mike Sullivan, the Eric Holla of coaches league wide.
I hope Holla blasts off this year. A 70-point Eric Holla would vindicate me to a level I don't think anyone has reached before. I might have reached it last year, but I could top it this year. All right, that's what I'm hoping for.
Power play here seems pretty set. Zibanejad, Dorofeyev, JT Miller, Alexis Lafreniere, Adam Fox. Gabe Perreault, I think, is the next man up. Bjorkstrand's been a power play guy in the past. Do you give Perreault any chance of unseating? Lafreniere has obviously been the guy that's been booted unceremoniously more times than not in the past. Do you think Perreault could make a case to be the fifth member of this power play at some point?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. I mean, he could. He has the skill to, but I think it's going to take injuries for him to get there. I don't think they want to do that. Like, now's the time. You need to, like, Lafreniere was one of their best scoring threats after Panarin left. In fact, probably their best. So you don't take that guy off. And then you brought Dorofeyev in here to, is it Dorofeyev or Dorofeyev? We've had this conversation. Fayev. God dang. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nathan. We'll edit that out. But yeah, you brought him in here to shoot the biscuit, right? And then, healthy Fox. Miller's a great power play performer, and Zib had an amazing kind of renaissance last year. I think he's kind of the engine of this group here. So I don't see any changes. And this was a great power play last year, folks. They were fifth best. This is one of the bright lights in New York. All right. New York, something, nice. something. I don't know the song, but yeah, that's Alicia Keys. But yeah, fifth best power play. I think they could be a top 10 power play again. And this even strength, offensive generation, I think is going to get better. I don't think they're going to be 30th worst there.
Yeah. I do think this is the way it shakes out more often than not. Perreault, next man up, but not likely to get in there unless there is an injury. Let's dig in on the projections. Mika Zibanejad off the rip, 29 goals, 47 assists, 77 points with the round up there for me. 31 goals, 47 assists, 78 points for you. I think Zibanejad is a pretty projectable player. Does rely on the power play for a fair bit of his production. I have him for 32 power play points, so that power play does need to still work without Trocheck. Obviously, Panarin not there any longer, so you are relying on Dorofeyev to be a good piece of this power play. I think that is a piece that I'm not 100% sold on. It's because Zibanejad is the shooter on this power play, has been for years. And now you've got Dorofeyev, who is also the shooter on the power play. And what does that look like? Dorofeyev was the recipient of a ton of just incredible Mark Stone passes that ended in goals on the power play last year. And those are not likely to come from anyone on this particular power play. I do think they can set up on opposite flanks and Fox can feed it back and forth between them and they can blast away and maybe that'll work, but also that seems like a kind of static and not very exciting way to do things that might be a little less effective than what they've had in the past. All that to say, I think they've got to figure it out. And so that is a concern for me. And I think the player that it affects the most is Zibanejad, who relies on the power play the most for his production.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think those goals are going to go down when you throw in a sniper like Dorofeyev in there. Yeah, they're going to have to split that. But I do see them, on opposite flanks there. That makes some sense. Zibanejad is a fine facilitator as well. I think he has that in his game, but that just hasn't been part of the success here of the New York power play. But they're going to have to change. You bring in a guy that's now making this kind of money, he's got to be a big part of that power play. And the other part is, does Dorofeyev have some playmaking in his bag as well, right? Because we haven't seen that. He hasn't had to. The guy played with Marner. The guy played with Jack Eichel. These are elite facilitators. So he doesn't have to do a damn thing, but doesn't mean he doesn't have that in his bag, right? Today's NHL player is really, not just pitch and hold. They're able to do a lot of things really well. So I would imagine Dorofeyev's gonna have some playmaking chops as well that we haven't seen as much. But yeah, definitely going to affect Zibanejad here. I've still got him for 31 goals. I think he's really the emotional leader, even over JT Miller. I know he's the captain, but I think, Miller might say some stuff and Zib's just yeah, whatever. But this is how we're really doing it, folks. And they're like, all right, yeah, Zib says we're going for it, right? I think he's kind of the guy that people are really looking to. I I feel good about this. I feel like the Rangers are going to bounce back at even strength, and that's going to absorb any issues that Zib has on the power play. And I still have him for 31 power play points as well. So I don't know. What do you have him for on the power play?
32. Yeah, so
there you go.
I think he gets close to that, but it will take some new chemistry on that top power play unit. Alexis Lafreniere I have for 24 goals, 37 assists, 61 points. You have him for 24 goals, 43 assists, and 67 points. So you're higher there on Lafreniere. I do think he can definitely hit that number.
Yep.
I brought this down a little bit, mostly just efficiency, I think, at even strength. If Perreault, Lafreniere, Zibanejad is a line that works all season long, then that's the path that I think Lafreniere needs for big time success. I'm also not like super convinced of a strong power play role for Lafreniere long term. I'm for 18 power play points. I can see a situation in which they kind of totally revamp that power play and Lafreniere's role is actually rather significant, but I'm thinking about the acquisition of Dorofeev. They're going to want to make that look good. JT Miller obviously has some gravity as the captain of the team. Zibanejad is the primary piece still. I think Fox on the back end. If anyone is going to be the Vincent Trocheck of this particular iteration of the Rangers power play, I think it is Lafreniere. And so that held down his projection a little bit for me here.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's a really good point. I got him for 21 power play points, so a little bit harder than you, but I'm still thinking that power play is going to be pretty sharp. You get a full season out of Adam Fox, right? And a reinvigorated Miller. I think he was injured. Miller was injured in preseason, right? And he kind of just stuck it out like a dingus. But yeah, I think there's a lot of ways I'll talk bad about him any chance I get. I don't know. But yeah, I think that Lafreniere was the guy that became the big time scoring threat for this team down the stretch. And I do love that line. Laf, Zib, and Perreault. I think they had great chemistry, complementary skill sets, right? And yeah, I'd like to see more of it. Perreault, I was watching some of his highlights as a playmaker. Like he's a pretty slick guy, slick playmaker. And I think that's again a complementary sort of piece to kind of the north-south stuff that Lafreniere can do. Great shot, and then Zib kind of being that defensive anchor that can also connect plays. So yeah, all that to say, I like Lafreniere a lot. He had 20 points in the last 21 games as well, with mostly playing with this line. So there's lots to like, I think. But this is kind of a one of the things with the Rangers. They really biffed their prospects. You know what I mean? They and I think they were such a good team for so long. Like when Lafreniere, when they had him coming up, they were a really good team and they had Stanley Cup aspirations. So it's the same old story. They don't want to put a young guy out there. They don't really want to let him make a bunch of mistakes because it could affect their standings. It could affect the game. And and I think that guys like Lafreniere really took the brunt of that. And this is really the first year where I'm seeing him as like one of the main pieces of their offense. And I'm really excited about that. Excited to the point of 67 points for Big Laugh. But I mean, you can get him at value. He's left wing, right wing eligible, decent hits. I think there's a lot to like there. I think he's going to be a good kind of sleeper player.
Yep, going in like end of the 11th kind of range in APL mocks.
Yep,
I
here for that.
definitely don't mind that swing there at all. Gabe Perreault I have for 19 goals, 26 assists, 45 points. You have him for 18 goals, 30 assists, 48 points. I like the player. I think there's definitely a ceiling outcome where he's in the 60-point range this year. I think that's probably the best case scenario for him this year, and therefore he's probably not like super fantasy relevant. Maybe in some stretches he gets super hot, but probably even the best case scenario, he's not much more than a streamer. But I do like the player. I do think there's a pretty good chance that we see him ascend into like a legit top 6, if not even top line winger talent.
Yeah. Do you remember what Alexis Lafreniere was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago? That's what Gabe Perreault is going to be like for the next 2 or 3 years, right? Like he's not going to get power play 1. I just don't see it. And like I said, unless there's an injury, but this is a really good prospect. He's the best prospect in the Rangers system. I saw a bunch of comps, one in particular of liking him to Trevor Zegras, which I think is a really nice comp, very slick player. So that's kind of what he's doing out there. But he might even be a little bit more sound defensively than a guy like Zegras. I think there's some bones there. This guy's got really good hockey IQ, all that stuff that you need to succeed. But yeah, he's going to need that deployment to do it, and he's not getting power play 1. So that's how we come out with a sub 50-point projection here.
JT Miller, I have for 24 goals, 51 assists, 75 points with the round down. You have him for 26 goals, 54 assists, and 79 points with the round down there. JT Miller, I find it hard to get into JT Miller, to be quite honest. His price has come way down. Obviously, this guy's going like second, third round in places not that long ago. Now he's at 64 in ADP, so that's placing him, outside the top 5 rounds here into the 6th round. And yeah, obviously that's a spot where you can afford to start taking a bit of a swing on a guy who feels a bit mercurial. But I don't know, Blake. Like, you're higher on him than me a little bit on the point projection here. Can you convince me to take a ride with JT Miller on some teams this year?
I just know what he's capable of. And, I don't think the age is really a problem. Like, he's 33. He's good to go. This guy's in the wheelhouse. It's just, I also know JT Miller to be extremely emotional. I think that's well documented. And I think that this is his first year being captain. And I think he's a guy that puts a lot of pressure on himself. And he got injured in preseason and tried to tough it out and just go for it, right? And I think that was kind of to his own peril there. So, that's a bit of a stretch, me trying to he's going to be so much better because all that's different. But I trust the talent of the player. He's an excellent facilitator. When his head's screwed on right, this guy's great defensively as well. He's not fast. So that was one of the problems. Like, if you're, chipping the puck in, this is one of the interviews I read. I actually wrote the quote here. He said, I think we struggled in the middle part of the season with the no BS. They just chipped everything in. Like, where's the line? He said, it doesn't mean you grab the puck and chip it in and then chase with your head cut off. That's not what that means. But that's what was happening, right? And JT Miller kind of addressed that. So I think we're going to be looking at a different, just a mindset of the team. They're not going to go back to do what they did last year, which is not generate a damn thing. So I like JT Miller a lot. What you got him for 76? I got him for 79. I think there's a lot of room on the power play. Like, what'd you get Miller for power play points? Because that's somewhere that I know he can really excel. And last year, 19 power play points. That show ain't no good. I mean, I projected him for 27 this year.
27 as well for me.
Yeah. So, I feel good about that, right? That's going to keep his floor is going to be fine. And to get him, I think he's triple eligible as well right now in Yahoo. I don't know if that sticks, but, 6th round JT Miller, you got the bangs as well. This guy, I've got him for 178 hits. I got him for 43 blocks. If you want PIMs, I got him for 43 PIMs. He's a dingus. He does that. He plays a ton. So I think there's a lot of ways for Miller to provide value for your fantasy squads in all formats. And to get him in the 6th round feels like free money to me. I'm definitely interested in JT Miller at that cost.
All right. Will Cooley, I have here, speaking of dump it in and chase it with your head cut off, 20 goals, 16 assists, rounded up to 37 points there. 20 goals, 20 assists, rounded up to 41 points there for you. Will Cooley, I have projected for 309 hits. So yeah, he's a player who does that. Not a guy that, even Rangers fans were like, what's he doing in the top 6? Get him out of there. I don't know if that's something we should really buy into for fantasy purposes. I think he's probably going to be a player who lives in this 20-ish goal range, probably sub 40 points for most of his career. But yeah, 300 hits, that's going to play in a fair number of leagues.
Well, and so will 20 goals. He's done it for 2 straight seasons as kind of a middle sixer. So I'm definitely interested in a bangers league. That Cooley is must roster. You're definitely having this guy in your squad because he's one of these guys that can hit on a lot of different categories. 68 blocks last year, 50 the year before, over 300 hits for both those years as well. His minutes just keep going up. He played just under 17 minutes last year. So yeah, do I want to see him on the second line? No, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Chris Drury, all right, are you going to write another letter to the fans and tell them why the hell Will Cooley is on the second line? But that for fantasy, there's lots of stuff to like. It's just there's no ceiling whatsoever, and the floor could absolutely fall out. If he gets moved off that second line, he did have some success on a third line with New York, but that was a good third line. They had some good players, whereas I don't think that's the same case here this year. So Cooley needs that second line to get to this projection, in my opinion.
All right, Pavel Dorofeyev, the big off-season acquisition. I have him for 33 goals, 28 assists, 61 points. I have him for 38 goals, 31 assists, 69 points. Nice projection there from you. This is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest difference between us amongst the forwards, 7.7 points difference in our projection. I'm for 23.4 power play points. What do you get him for on the power play?
26.
Okay, so that's roughly half of what we got there. So a little bit on the power play, a little bit at even strength. I got him for 15 minutes time on ice at even strength. What'd you get him for?
Same.
Same, 63% IPP, 28 shots per 60, 10.25% on ice shooting percentage.
I got him. IPP is 64%, 30 shots for per 60, and then 10.59 on a shooting percentage. So, yeah, just some chipping away there at our percentages.
Yeah, biggest difference being the shot generation at even strength, the on ice stuff there. Yeah, I think I regressed him back down towards where like JT Miller is for me, 27.5 for Miller, 28 for Dorofeyev in terms of on ice shots for per 60. So that's where the even strength stuff is mostly coming from. I just don't have a lot of confidence. I think Dorofeyev was coming out of basically the best possible situation for him in terms of players who could get him the puck and let him do what he does best. I think there's potential that Dorofeyev can be a bit more of an on-puck player and do a bit more distribution work and be a bit more dynamic in his own right. I think that that's a possible outcome, but I don't think that you can necessarily say that we saw that in spades with Vegas. He's never really had to have that role for any sustained period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just electing to be cautious. Like, people know Dorofeyev was a guy that I called out. I was like,
Yep.
watch out if this guy gets on the power play, because I think that'll work. And then it happened where he got on the power play and he was immediately great there. And his efficiency, his rate stats all progressed as he got moved up the lineup to the point where he's getting this $11 million AAV contract. So it's not that I don't like the player. It's just that I think JT Miller's kind of his only shot at having a really good fantasy season here, and that power play's got to work, and that's how he gets to a close to 40 goal, close to 70 point projection like you've got him here. I think a lot has to work well in his first season in New York for him to get there, and I personally, I just don't think I'm ready to bet on that.
Yep. That all tracks for me. Like there's a lot of variance here. This is a new face in a new place. And not just that, like he's going from a kind of a complimentary role in Vegas. Like you wouldn't be like, who are the best players on Vegas? You're like Pavel Dorofeyev. Like, even though you could, he had an amazing season, especially on the power play. No, you're like Mitch Marner, Jack Eichel, like Shea Theodore. These are great players, Mark Stone. So now he's going to a team where he's got to be the guy. And I think that is really make it or break it, right? How does he sort of manage that? And I think that he'll manage it pretty well. I look at JT Miller's, like going back to kind of his shots for per 60, like Miller last year, his line was terrible. Like who is he playing with? He was playing with Cooley, and sometimes he would be up with Zibanejad and Perreault, but like he never had a shooter like Dorofeyev on his line. So I think that's going to raise the floor for sure. This guy's going to shoot the puck. Dorofeyev had kind of a down season in his shots on goal per 60 last year. I think that bumps up a little bit. Like I had Dorofeyev for a 9+ shots on goal per 60, where he had 7.8 last year at even strength. So I think it's just wheels up for Dorofeyev. Like, we signed you to big money. You're our guy. When you get the puck on your stick, you shoot it, right? But I'm also, I guess, banking on a little bit of sneaky playmaking for Dorofeyev that we haven't seen so far. So again, definitely some variance there, but this is based on stuff I was reading as well. Like, Bruce Cassidy said this guy's not a perimeter player. Like, he could always shoot. That was something that he was really good at, playing on the power play with top end guys, but he's also getting better at puck recovery, like second effort at getting pucks, right? So got that dog in him a little bit, right? I think that with this contract, he's going to have to be a little bit more of a playmaker as well. He's going to have to add that to his repertoire. And I like to think, and this isn't a direct comp here, but I think about a player like David Pastrnak and how he was able to mold his game based on the teammates he had, the lines he had. He was able to become one of the most elite facilitators in the game, even though he's already one of the most elite shooters in the game. You know what I mean? So again, I'm not calling Dorofeyev Pastrnak, but I think that the modern NHL player has the ability to sort of change their game. And I'm banking on Dorofeyev being a little bit better as a playmaker. And I'm also banking on Miller having a bounce back season. And I think 69, 70 points feels okay for Dorofeyev. The problem is the value, right? Like, I don't think I'm going to have a lot of Dorofeyev on my teams because of his value. I think people see an $11 million contract. They're like, yep, he's going to get 40 goals, 40 assists, no problem. It's like, no, how's that going to happen? Right? There's way too much variance here, but I do like the player. I mean, yeah, we'll see. I hope he has a massive year.
Going in the 7th round in APL mocks currently. Third line for the Rangers, nothing much to write home about. You did a projection for Noah Laba, which is just tremendous work. 11 goals, 23 assists, 34 points. Oliver Bjorkstrand I have for 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points. You have for 17 goals, 20 assists, 37 points. Ty Karche I have for 12 goals, 11 assists, 23 points. You have for 14 goals, 13 assists, and 27 points. Obviously, the thing with Karche is that comes with 267 hits in my projections. Anything to add on the third line?
Beef. Oh, yeah. I could see Bjorkstrand, the jerk store call. They're running out of him. I could see him up on the second line there, get Will Cooley out of there. That would make some sense. Maybe raise the floor of Bjorkstrand a little bit. It's an efficient player, a great shooter, but he had a good opportunity in Tampa last year and he did jack squat with it. This is definitely just a kind of a supplementary like sniper at this point of his career. I do like Noah Laba. I read a really good article on him too. And I'm not going to go into it all, but this guy's an elite skater, great speed, NHL edge. He's 95th percentile with his top speed. Noah Laba, folks. So he does that. This guy's got insane drive, underdog mentality, good face-offs for a rookie. He had over 50% face-off wins last year. So, yeah, just a player of interest I'm definitely interested in. And then Cartier, 14 points in 24 games with the Rags. Third-line grinder, efficient, big bangs. And, that's how we're getting to biz there. And not a terrible third line.
All right, Adam Fox going to the defense. I have Fox for 14 goals, 59 assists, 73 points. You have him for 14 goals, 60 assists, and 74 points. I think we're both pretty in on Adam Fox this year, in for a bounce back. Fox has never been a big peripherals guy. I only have him for 140 shots, 38 hits, 118 blocks is okay, I guess. But he is being steamed right back up this year, unfortunately, at least in our APL mocks, up to 40.1 ADP. So early 4th round, basically, is where he's going. I think that's appropriate. I think he's pretty bankable in this range. And yeah, I was just kind of hoping that we were going to get a bit more value. I'll pay the price. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll pay the price. But like, I was hoping for a little bit better.
This guy's unbelievable. He tilts the ice better than most defensemen in the league. Not having him for portions of the season was really rough, right? He only played 55 games last year, 53 points in those games. So yeah, he's a great player on the power play as well. Had a big year there. Well, we'll see. Like they need, obviously they've got Adam Fox and I mentioned, picking up Marcus Pettersson, Sean Dursey as well, the ability to play a good transition game, good first passes, get these guys the puck in good positions so they can get the zone and actually, have a scoring chance instead of just dumping it in. I think it's going to make a big difference, but yeah, I think Adam Fox is at the bottom of a tier. Right. So it's like you miss out on some guys. It's like, yeah, you get Adam Fox, you're happy with that. But reaching for Adam Fox is not a good idea, I don't think, because there's some empty calorie stuff there, right? Like, good blocks, I guess, like you said, really no hits. And we're hoping that power play cooks again. And we're hoping that, they're able to fix their problems at even strength. So I picked them in, I think, our last APL mock draft. You and I were right next to each other, and I picked Fox in the 4th round. And once I clicked it, I was like, I don't know if I like that. Why did I do that? Right. I think you picked someone awesome. Like, I don't know, like Leo Carlson or something. I was like, oh man, could have had Carlson or whatever you had. But I do like Fox a lot. I think he's a great defenseman in real life. And we're looking at a 70-point floor really with this guy from year to year. So pretty bankable player.
All right, the one everybody's been waiting for, Sean Dursey. I have him for 8 goals, 23 assists, 31 points. You have him for 9 goals, 31 assists, rounding up to 41 points. This is a 9.9 point difference between us on this. I told you before we got started, this is probably the projection of yours that shocked me the most
Oh
out
my
of
God.
all of the ones we've
That's
done
so
so far.
us. Yeah. Like,
We've already had like probably 15 minutes of debate on Sean Dursey before getting on the microphone. So have at it, Blake. Tell me why Sean Dursey is going to have the
oh my
best
God.
season of his pro career on this iteration of the New York Rangers.
This is absolutely giving me PLD vibes from 2 years ago. All right. I literally called PLD for like a 60-point season, and Nate's like, "What are you doing? How dare you?" Just to be clear, folks, I've got Sean Dursey for 40.6 points, rounded up to 41. Yeah, I mean, I'm not banging the drum for Sean Dursey out here. Okay. It's a 40-point defenseman. But what I will say is that I really believe in the player. I really like him for fantasy, right? Like I like him as a guy that can put points on the board. And he's done that kind of throughout his career. Like if you look at the pace of points he's had throughout his career. Yeah, early on, 35, then 43, 44. 2 years ago, 30-point pace, and then 37-point pace last year with Utah in a secondary role, right? So I think I said it again. When Nate and I were arguing before, I said secondary role. He's like, he's getting a primary role in New York. I'm like, no, it's not the right word. So I take it back. But yeah, I feel like he's getting a very similar role in New York that he had in Utah. And I think there's more need for him here and his style of play, which is transition play, right? He's able to skate the puck up. He's able to skate the puck in, get chances himself, where instead of like, what New York was dealing with last year, which is, a bunch of spare parts, like this is a guy they actually spent up like a pretty good trade to acquire Sean Dursey. I think they're going to get him out there for 20 plus minutes. And the other thing I really like about Sean Dursey is he's projected to play with Marcus Pettersson. And Marcus Pettersson is a player that I've seen in Vancouver, even in the worst possible environment I've ever seen for a team in Vancouver. They were terrible. Marcus Pettersson, to me, was kind of a net positive. He was a really calming force. He's really good at puck retrievals. He's really good at things like rushed exits, which I've talked about before. So kind of getting back in for the retrieval, whereas Dursey's not good at that. Dursey is not good at retrieving the puck. But Pettersson is. So Pettersson retrieves the puck, passes to Dursey, gets him with speed, and Dursey can do what he does. I see him kind of as like a poor man's Brandon Montour, like a Simone Nemec kind of guy, like a guy that can jump up in the play. Don't squint at me. You're just, oh God, just the contempt, just a straight contempt from Nathan Grudniblik here. That's fine. But but all this to say, I think that transition defense, like good passes from the defense last year with the Rangers, was really something they were sorely missing. And that's why they addressed that by getting guys like Pettersson and Dursey. So I do think that Dursey's a really good offensive player as well. And I projected him as such, 40.6 points. Nathan, you know what? Defend yourself with 30.7 for Dursey. This is what I really want to hear. Can you explain to me how he's going to have the worst statistical season of his career with the New York Rangers?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Utah Mammoth, 8th best, 585 expected goals for per 60 last year. New York Rangers, 26th best. They lose Panarin, they lose Trocheck, they add Dorofeyev. I don't see how it's a better scenario. I don't see how the power of love between Marcus Pettersson and Sean Dursey somehow makes Dursey.
You've seen the power of love. You've seen what it does here, Nathaniel, right? How can we doubt that?
I don't know how often they're going to cross the streams, but I don't see how Dursey equals his career high on this iteration of the New York Rangers without an Adam Fox injury. So that's where I'll leave it with Dursey. We got to get to the top 3 targets, Blake.
Give it to me, Neil. Sean Dursey, number 1, Sean Dursey, number 2, and Sean Dursey, number 3. No, I'm taking Adam Fox as my number 1. Again, now that I'm looking at this and after the conversation with you, I could probably bump him down. I feel like, yeah, you're paying for the exact value that he is. So there's not a ton of value there with Adam Fox. So I might bump him down to 2 or 3, but I still like him as one of my targets. JT Miller, I've got his number 2. I think, again, like I mentioned, there's big time bounce back potential there. And to get him in the 6th round, it feels like a steal, considering what he's capable of doing. And then Alexis Lafreniere as my 3rd. I think, like I said, I think he was their top threat once Panarin left, and that might hold, and we could be looking at a 70-point Alexis Lafreniere that you can get at extreme value there. So that's my story there. What do you got there, Nate?
I got Lafreniere as my number 1. I think if anyone kind of blows away their projection on this team, I think that's going to be Lafreniere. 11th round price tag. I'm into it.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Fox, the number 2. You are paying for the name brand value of Adam Fox. You are paying for the assuredness of that 70-ish point floor, but I'm pretty willing to do it if I miss out on the big tier of guys above him.
Yep.
And then Gabe Perreault I put as my number 3. Thought about JT Miller, couldn't bring myself to put his name down. Gabe Perreault, not a player that I'm drafting, but a player that I do think if, there was one injury and he did become that guy on the top power play and he does stick on the top line all year, I can see that 60-point scenario. And so that's a player that I at least want to keep mentioning early on in the off season. All right, last team, Ottawa Senators. Key departures, some guy named Brady Tkachuk. Key arrivals, William Eklund, Carter Yakemchuk joined the team for a few games last year. Looks to be an incoming regular this year. Andrei Burakovsky, Samuel Urson joining here. We've talked about the Tkachuk change a fair bit here already, Blake. Has anything really changed for you with how you've thought about this team sans Brady Tkachuk in 26-27?
I don't think it's going to have the huge effect that maybe some people think it will have. I think that especially towards the end of the year and maybe the whole last year, like he had less ice time. I don't think he was as big a part of the offense there under Travis Green. And it might be a net positive. Is that crazy to say? I don't know, because the he's an elite player. Like, he's a game changer. He's obviously got a lot of intangibles that other players don't have, but I feel like this could be a good thing. That said, do these arrivals really move the needle? Not really. I like William Eklund, and I'm excited to talk about that player and what his potential role would be on this team. But, I think this could be a wash. Like, we've got a great defensive team here, which we'll talk about. It's really just the goaltending that needs to get sorted out. And I think they have the pieces there to get that done. And if that's done, then yeah, we could see this team playing with the lead a little bit more than they did last season.
Behind the bench, Travis Green returns for his 3rd season. He had the Sens playing the league's most parsimonious 5v5 defensive system last year, that being the best 5v5 expected goals against per 60. And really, I think it does come down to that. Like you said, if Allmark was in a better place last season, I think it would have gone very differently for the Senators. Maybe Tkachuk still wants out because all he wants to do is go play on the beach with his brother. But
tooting his jeans.
Yeah, something like that. But if Allmark is fully back and it's all systems go for this season, I think there's a pretty good chance that this season does just turn around on the back of Allmark and the back of this defensive system that Travis Green has implemented. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, just when you look at what this team was able to do last year, it's pretty exciting. Like they, defensively anyway, like I like to go through some of these metrics. So in terms of scoring, like they were 8th best at even strength in expected goals for per 60. They were 10th in actual goals for per 60. So that's very nice. Great offensive environment. They were 7th in shots for per 60, which is great. They're firing the biscuit there. And then defensively, they were number 1 in the entire league in expected goals against per 60. They were 17th in actual goals against per 60. That's ludicrous. That's terrible. There's nothing you can say really besides like the goaltending was atrocious. They had a really string of bad luck there. Obviously, we know what Allmark dealt with last year is dealing with some mental health issues. So hopefully he comes into this season ready to go. But their backup plan, which is Maralainen there, terrible. The guy was not ready to be thrust into that position, and that really showed. So we'll see what happens. I think when you have a defensive environment that is this clean and good, and I don't think Brady Tkachuk was like a huge factor there. So taking him out of the equation, like we're still good. You're bringing in a guy like Eklund who has some decent defensive chops as well. I feel like we're still going to have a really like a top 10 defensive team, but we'll have better goaltending from Linus Ullmark. And yeah, hopefully, maybe we're going to talk about some of the players here on Ottawa that could potentially, maybe have even better seasons than they've had previously.
All right, let's talk about the power play. Stützle, Batherson, Dylan Cousins, Jake Sanderson. I think all those guys are pretty locked into their roles after playing there last season. I'd say Eklund feels pretty close to being locked in as the fourth forward. The only way I could really see that not being the case is if they want like a Brady style bigger body to play net front.
Yep.
I don't think that that's a likely scenario. I think they will just opt for the most skilled group of players that they can put together. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Brady is more than just like a meathead in front of the net. Like I got to give the guys flowers. Like he's very good and tight there. But I do think that, again, the more I dig in on these power plays and how they're run and the coaches, what they want to do, it seems like there's really kind of two structures that really come to play, which is like get it to the point and fire screenshots, or get it down low and kind of set up plays and move the puck east to west. And I feel like with Brady, it's a little bit more get to the point and bang away. Whereas I feel like, you get a guy like Eklund in here, he's a much better passer than Brady is. I think that's no one would really have issue with that. And I think it's going to give them some different looks because this is a power play that's already pretty efficient. Like they've done a good job in the past. And something else I've been looking up in preparation for this is like how much power play time each team is usually getting. And Ottawa is almost annually the number one team in the league in terms of power play time on ice. They get the most power plays. So will that be the same without Brady on the team? I would probably not. I think that'll, these guys really piss you off, but maybe Florida will be the team now. But yeah, they're going to get lots of chances. And I think Eklund's going to be the guy there.
One other note I will say, Carter Kemchuk, potential guy to push Thomas Chabot for power play 2. It's not the way I projected it. I think Chabot will keep his power play 2 role, but I think it could very well be that both are on the second power play unit. Wouldn't be too surprising as well, but something to watch out for there at least. All right, projections here. Let's start it with Tim Stützle. I have him for 33 goals, 53 assists, rounded down to 85 points. You have him for 35 goals, 48 assists, 83 points. Pretty tight here on Stützle. When I plugged him in, I've historically been pretty low on Stützle relative to ADP. This is probably the first year I can remember where I'm actually pretty in line with where his ADP is, at least in our circles. So in our drafts, Tim Stützle is going around the 34th overall pick, so back end of the third. And I have him ranked right about there in my average fantasy points per game. So finally, all the numbers are making sense for me with Tim Stützle. I think I honestly don't think he suffers whatsoever from Brady Tkachuk being gone. Didn't play a lot with him at even strength. Obviously, they played together on the power play, but I think Stützle, like people are talking about like Stützle having to like take over this team with Brady Tkachuk gone. Like this was Stützle's team for all intents and purposes in terms of offensive driving before Brady Tkachuk left. I have zero concerns about Stützle in the post-Brady era.
It's so nice to hear you speaking well of Timmy Stutz. Oh man, Nate's been just yucking my yum on Timmy Stutz for a lot of years, and I'm here for this take. That's very nice. But yeah, I agree with you. The numbers make sense. You're higher on him than I am. So I love that. I could absolutely see him hitting yours. I could see him hitting 90, right? This is a guy that has that in the wheelhouse. Something, again, like watching some of his highlights and reading up on him, like it reminds me of what I talked about with Matt Barzal, like a guy that, a lot of flash, like not always equaling like something, you know what I mean? Like he's zipping around. He's content to circle the perimeter there, defer to the point. Right. So I'm hoping that we see a little bit more killer instinct there with Timmy Stutz here this year, but yeah, he's an elite player in transition. Obviously, they're the top line and expected to be getting the most goals. So there's a good chance they're getting a lot of goals coming back their way, or at least chances, right? So that's something that kind of stinks for Timmy Stutz, but that's fine. I've projected, and I know you're a little bit different here, but I've projected the top line, Stützle, Eklund, and Fabian Zetterlund is kind of how I'm seeing the top line. You've got it as Stutz, Giroux, and Batherson, which was a very common line. I think it was, the most common line for Timmy Stutz last year. So do you see a difference in your projection if he plays with Eklund and Zetterlund there?
Yeah, that would not be ideal in my perspective. I think Zetterlund has completely fallen out of favor, really, with Travis Green, and it would be pretty shocking to me. I know there's like this Zetterlund Eklund connection that these guys are buds, but I don't think I talked about it with Pedersen and Jersey. I don't think the power of love is enough to bring
So
Fabian
cynical,
Zetterlund to
so
line one
cynical.
in Ottawa after Travis Green has made pretty obvious his distaste for Fabian Zetterlund's game over the last year plus. So yeah, I kind of just defaulted to this. I think it's definitely possible that Eklund's on the top line. They could move some stuff around. Would not be shocking to me whatsoever. But I did kind of default back into what they went with as the most common top line last year, which was Stützle, Drew, Batherson. Drew I have for 17 goals, 31 assists, 48 points. You have him for 14 goals, 32 assists, and 46 points. I don't think this is a player you're really going to roster. Maybe if he's getting some power play one time due to injury or some other reason, then you could get into that. But unless you're in a face-offs league, I don't think Claude Giroux is of concern for fantasy.
Yeah, it's just business as usual for what you know for Claude Giroux for the last couple of years, and that's fine. Yeah, it's a good streamer. And like if he gets power play one for an extended period of time, he can do something there. But yeah, I was glad to see him re-up though. I think that's a nice piece there because this guy's one of the leaders on this team. You get rid of Brady Tkachuk. I think Giroux has a little bit of a bigger role, at least in that locker room. And I think that's a positive for the team.
Drake Batherson, I have for 31 goals, 40 assists, 71 points. You have him for 30 goals, 44 assists, 74 points. Pretty tight on that there. I'm projecting a little bit of a regression for Batherson. Did probably run a bit hot last year at times, but definitely a true top line, top power play caliber winger at this stage in his career. I think he's pretty bankable in this range. Again, not a player that I'm concerned about having a fall off due to Brady leaving. Played most of his time with this Giroux Stützle combo, as I mentioned before, so didn't see a whole lot of benefit, if any, from Tkachuk at even strength. I don't really love the price to acquire on Batherson right now. He's going kind of tail end of the 6th, early 7th. I think there's still a few other players, like Nikolai Ehlers goes not long after him, and I think I'd take Ehlers there. Hischier, who we've talked about earlier, is in that range, and then we're getting into some of my favorites like Logan Cooley and guys like that. So, I'm probably not taking Batherson a lot where he's going. Maybe if he falls a little bit more, then I might get interested, but I think it's fair. I just don't think it's a value where he's going.
Yep. That's again, not too much to add there. This is a guy that I always noticed from year to year, like he wasn't putting even strength production and power play production together. It was like one or the other, but yeah, he's got a good role in his team. I think that he's a good playmaker. He's a really good playmaker. And I've actually got him on the second line there. My second line is Ridley Greig, Cousins, and Batherson. And they did have a little bit of time together. So it's not like I'm just throwing darts at a board here. I think I think this team is going to look a little bit different without Brady Tkachuk, and the lines could see a little bit of a juggle here. But regardless, I think that Batherson is still going to be very viable. 74 points. Yeah, like you said, it's the cost to acquire. I think there are better options there with more upside.
Right, Dylan Cousins, I have for 28 goals, 35 assists, 63 points. You have for 29 goals, 37 assists, 66 points. Dylan Cousins is a player that will give you shots. I have him for over 200 shots. He will give you hits. I have him for over 200 hits. So I'm actually pretty into Dylan Cousins, mostly for those peripherals, a little bit for what I consider now to be a pretty locked down top power play role there. And I think the cost to acquire is something you're going to be far more interested in on Cousins than some of these other players that we've talked about, going at 110 ADP in APL mocks lately. That's something that I'm much more interested in if he's going to be going in the 10th round. So again, a player, if you wait on center, you can get yourself some Dylan Cousins in the 10th. and pick up a bunch of shots, a bunch of hits, pick up that floor. But also, I think there's even potential for a 70-point season from Dylan Cousins, and you shouldn't be shocked if that happens.
Yep, absolutely, buddy. I think this is a player of interest. It's a guy we need to be watching. And yeah, we got to see what those lines look like. But I think when Dylan Cousins is on, this guy's like an excellent player in transition, generating a lot of entries with chances. He's got another really good playmaker on his line, the way I'm projecting it. But even the way you're projecting it, like if he's with Eklund and Batherson, like that's almost better. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like there are a lot of ways for Dylan Cousins to have like a really massive year. I've got him for 66. But like you said, the Periffs keep that floor solid. And yeah, this is really one of the first years where I think he's going to be locked and loaded for a top offensive role in this team. And there's just a lot to like.
All right, William Eklund next up I have for 21 goals, 37 assists, 58 points. You have him for 20 goals, 43 assists, 63 points. This is the biggest difference in our projections on the Senators. You have him for 5.8 points more than I do. My issue with Eklund is more to do with the even strength role here. I don't think there's a likely scenario where he gets, like 15 plus minutes of even strength time on ice, which is probably what he'd need to get to, that 65 plus where he's like a consistent fantasy like a guy that's on your team basically all season long, rather than a guy that you're probably going to move in and out at various times throughout your season. That's not to say that he couldn't be more efficient here, but it's not a guy who's historically had a great shooting percentage either, so that would have to probably be a bit more efficient for him to really ratchet up the goals, which obviously give us a lot more weight for fantasy purposes as well. All told, I think Eklund is a good player, just maybe not a great player for fantasy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. To me, really, you nailed it there. I've got him for over 15 minutes even strength deployment. So with Timmy Stutz, that's kind of how I'm getting there. I think my percentages are probably a little bit higher than yours. Like this is not a guy that's gonna get a lot of goals. I've got him for like under 10% shooting percentage at even strength, which is not great. But he's a really, really slick facilitator. I really like that. And I do like the Zetterlund combination. Damn it. I think that Zetterlund is kind of like a very poor man's Brady Tkachuk. You know what I mean? I think he has some of the same elements, and, mentals are so important. And I think that if they want to give Zetterlund a chance, and that's a big if, I think that this is the best way to do that, to put him in a position to succeed, to balance stuff down the roster. And William Eklund and Timmy Stutz are elite facilitators and transition players, and Zetterlund could be the hammer, the forecheck guy, and all that stuff. But yeah, Eklund's projection is dependent on good even strength deployment and top power play all year, and that's how I'm getting there. And that should say a lot about kind of his ceiling, right? Like I'm at 64 and Nate's at 58, so I don't think there's a lot here this upcoming year. We need to see what he's able to do with the Sens.
Right, Ridley Gregg I have for 14 goals, 20 assists, 34 points. You have him for 14 goals, 24 assists, 38 points. Not much to say here. We'll give you hits. I'm for 127 hits, but 138 shots is not too great. Don't think he's going to have a significant power play role. I'm just not that excited about Ridley Gregg. Maybe like a Bangers Cats streamer in a deep league.
Yep, not too much more to say there. Just a goober, just an absolute goober, but I think he's the type of guy you want on your team that make the other team uncomfortable. And he does that very well. And he gets, middle six to sometimes top 6 minutes. So it's an interesting piece, a guy you can stream in here and there.
All right, Shane Pinto, I have for 28 goals, 23 assists, 51 points. You have him for 24 goals, 28 assists, 52 points. I think we both really like Shane Pinto. I think Travis Green really likes Shane Pinto. I think he gets more even strength time on ice than anybody not named Tim Stützle on the Ottawa Senators next year. But unfortunately, the role that he plays is not really a fantasy role. Maybe some power play too, but oftentimes just being left completely off the power play in favor of using him for a ton of shorthanded minutes and a ton of matchup even strength minutes, and doing that very, very well. Bunch of Selke votes for Shane Pinto last year as well. So definitely a guy that's held in high regard league-wide, not just within the Ottawa organization.
Yo, yeah. The pinto bean. Damn. Get a pinto bean in your life. Who the hell saw a pinto bean in the wild and was like, you know what? I'm going to take this home. I'm going to put it in a pot. I'm going to boil it. And then I'm just going to eat it, right? No salt, just raw dog it. Just raw dog a pinto bean. Why would you do that? I don't know. I don't have too much more to add on Shane Pinto. I love the player. Yeah, you're exactly right. He's not getting the offensive deployment or opportunity needed to be super relevant for fantasy. If his role changes, though, this is a guy that can absolutely, I think he has 70-point upside, maybe in another team, in another system with another coach. But on this team, I think his role is locked and loaded. And it's a good one, right? He's really important in real life.
All right, last one here. Blake, you did a projection for Fabian Zetterlund. I didn't because it probably would have come out under 20 points, but you've got him for 19 goals, 19 assists, 38 points here. You've talked about it a fair bit already. Any parting words on Fabian Zetterlund?
The power of love. All right, that's all I have to say, Nate. And I'm gonna circle back to this. All right, it's very strong, as you can tell. All right, between what we got going on here.
Fair enough.
Oh.
Jake Sanderson, I have for 17 goals, 46 assists, 63 points. You have for 15 goals, 54 assists, 68 points with the round down there. I think we both like Sanderson a fair bit. I think we both like him a fair bit at cost. Shoots a fair bit, blocks a fair bit, does a lot of stuff that we like for fantasy. I think he's very much in that kind of Adam Fox tier for both of us. I think it makes sense to get him around there, but he does go 9 picks later than Adam Fox on average. And maybe I actually kind of prefer that value a little bit on Jake Sanderson versus Adam Fox. How about you?
Yeah, I think so. And I didn't realize that until I projected the team, because so I'm biased as everyone else. I'm like, Jake Sanderson, whatever. But then when you dig in, you're like, oh, damn. Like, yeah, I like the Adam Fox comp a lot. And the team in front of him is better. So, I think, yeah, there's lots of ways for him to get up around the, 60 plus points. Like we got him nice projection here. I got them for 68 for God's sake. So yeah, I like the player. He's fourth. I've talked about rush exits as well. Jake Sanderson is fourth in rushed exits in all three zones behind Lacombe, Dahlin, and Makar. And then Sanderson. All right, that's fine company there. So he's just one of the best defensemen in the league, and he's still underrated. And I think I might have a lot of him on some of my fantasy squads here.
Right. Artem Zuba did a quick projection, 5 goals, 24 assists, 29 points. I honestly can't remember why. He does get 144 blocks, not even a hit per game, barely a shot per game. He is a player who exists on the Ottawa Senators. Thomas Chabot, I have for 10 goals, 35 assists, 45 points. You have him for 11 goals, 31 assists, 42 points. I think it's reasonable to at least question if the arrival of Carter Yakemchuk will, spell an end to Thomas Chabot's power play time. I still think Chabot is too valuable on that second power play unit to be completely ousted. I think it's far more likely that they just both play on that unit.
Yep.
I have 9.5 power play points for Chabot, so it's not like his entire projection here is dependent on the power play either, but definitely a decent chunk of it. I still like Chabot as a fourth defenseman on your roster. I think he's going to be relatively bankable, and he's going to play big minutes for this squad.
For sure. Unbelievable skating. I mean, offensive generation, creation. He does that, right? It's just he's not getting the opportunity. You got a guy like we just, waxed poetic on Jake Sanderson here. So I think that's really just the block here for Chabot. He's had some injuries in the past as well, but I think that he's a fine player. I could definitely see Yakemchuk coming in here and maybe 2D on power play too. I think that's kind of a nice piece there, but I don't see Chabot losing it. This is a guy that, again, reminds me, I always think of Brandon Montour or like Thomas Harley as comps, or Devin Taves. We're getting double-digit goals, probably 40 points. These guys will play. They'll definitely be valuable in your leagues as like a fourth, fifth defenseman, or even a D stream, when you're looking for a defenseman midseason.
All right, Jordan Spence and Carter Yakemchuk will kind of lump together here. I have Spence for 8 goals, 24 assists, 32 points. You have him for 8 goals, 29 assists, 37 points. I did a projection for Yakemchuk coming to 8 goals, 23 assists, 31 points. That's including a bit more power play time for Yakemchuk and not much for Spence. Spence did get on the top power play due to all those injuries. When Sanderson and Chabot were both down, they kind of turned to Spence as, like, I guess you're the only guy left standing. And he was pretty good. I think he acquitted himself very well. I just don't think that that's the way this team really views him or views his role on this squad, especially now with Yakemchuk in the fold, who, like, the primary reason for Yakemchuk's existence in your lineup is to create offense. And so I do think that he'll get more prioritized for an offensive role sooner rather than later. So for myself, I would prioritize watch listing Yakemchuk over Spence early on.
Yeah, that makes some sense. I love Jordan Spence though. I love what he was able to do last year. That to me is a player of interest. I look at it like his numbers at even strength, his expected goals percentage, 60%. Bang. Like this he's tilting it out there. I mean, his shots 4%, 59%, Corsi 4%, 60%, scoring chance 4%, 62.5%. Jordan Spence. So those are some really amazing numbers. And yeah, half the season he was getting sheltered, kind of zone starts and things like that. So he was getting favorable zone starts, but we saw what he was able to do when elevated up the lineup. So yeah, I think he's in behind in the pecking order there. That's really going to stop him from getting any real fantasy value. That said, I gave him 37.5 points. Damn. I mean, this is a guy that I'm going to be watching. And again, another player that I think, if given the opportunity, can succeed and give us something, different for fantasy. That's maybe other people don't see coming.
All right, Blake, top 3 targets. Give it to me.
You got it, bud. Dylan Cousins, number 1. We talked about why, great floor, and maybe a renewed ceiling here as a bigger piece of the offense in Ottawa. Jake Sanderson, number 2, love the value. I got William Eklund as number 3 because I think he's going to get line 1 and power play 1 with Timmy Stutz, that obscene play driver.
All right, for myself, Cousins, obvious number 1. Sanderson, I like in the early 5th as well. And Thomas Chabot, just checked his ADP. He's going in the 13th round in APL mocks. That's a free 4th defenseman.
Big value.
Live on your roster all year long. So I love that if you faded D. I think, Blake, we've made it to the end of another projections episode. If you made it this far with us, there are links in the description. You should also please like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever you're able to do. It really does help us out. We're trying to get those subscriptions on YouTube up. We've crested the 3,000 mark. We're trying to get to 4,000. You think we can do 4,000 before the season starts, Blake?
Well, if we don't, I'm going to create a bunch of dummy accounts and, just so we can say we did, right? If that's okay.
All right. Sounds like a plan. That is going to be all that we got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard came from Natural Stat Trick and 18 Skaters. All the micro stats you heard came from all 3 zones. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying the music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.